I don't know how many of these I've done over the years, but it is time for my complete Blu-ray collection for the year 2025. Still not really comprehending that that's a real year. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video, a Blu-ray collection video. You're going to want to have your popcorn ready for this one because I don't know how long this thing's going to get. Historically, I've done this video from my POV, so I'll hold up a camera, I'll have a light behind me, and I'll just pull out every movie on my shelf one by one. And I'm not gonna lie, by the end of that, most times I'm pouring sweat, my arm is shaking, and I'm just exhausted mentally and physically. And so I do this video once a year. I said, you know what, let's go all out this year. So I actually am going to pull every movie off the shelf and holding it up and talking about it that way. I've done one Blu-ray collection video like that in my life. It wasn't even on this channel. It was on my old channel of my name, not of Film Stocked. But that was a long time ago, a lifetime ago, dare I say. But I got a Dr. Pepper Zero on handy right here, little caffeine booster. Cheers to that. But this is gonna be a fun one. You know, this is a very laid back video, and since I don't feel rushed and I'm not racing against my muscles fatiguing, I probably will take a little more time talking about these movies. I watched Blu-ray collection videos a long time ago, like 2014, 15, 16, and honestly, to me, I view them as sort of an inspiration for me starting my own channel, and I'd say the Blu-ray collection videos I watched the most were the Flick Pick, and he always did it this way. I watched the Chris Stuckman Blu-ray collection video a ton. I'm already out of breath. Not a good look. And so I figured, I want to do one that way. I've never done it that way. This is a video, I only do it once a year. Why not have some fun with it? Pull the movies out and make it a little more personable. Before I get into this though, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below your favorite Blu-ray that you own, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. If this is the first video of mine you're watching, I do movie reviews, movie rankings, but also lots of tier lists that range from movies to TV shows. A whole section of my channel is devoted to covering Stranger Things, my favorite show. I do news updates and filming updates over there, so got tons of different content. Whatever's your cup of tea, I got all sorts of stuff, so consider subscribing if you haven't already. I also do live streams. I have a blast with those. But without further ado, I say we just dive into this thing. I should probably get into the ground rules. I now have my collection sectioned off by genre, and within each genre, I have the movies alphabetized. Then, of course, I have a section devoted to, the Criterions that I own, the TV shows that I own, as well as, Disney and the MCU. I've got a bunch. You'll see what I'm doing when we get into it, but this is gonna be a fun one. Let's have a good time, and again, grab your own Dr. Pepper Zero to have a drink with me. But the first genre I've got here is action, and I kind of just decide what genre a movie is. Obviously, some movies are comedies and dramas or dramedies or romantic thrillers, whatever. I just pick the genre that I view it as mainly. And so this is all my rules, my collection, my rules, you dig? So the first movie I got here in the action genre is Baby Driver. It's directed by Edgar Wright. I got this years ago when it came out. I actually saw this in theaters with my girlfriend Cam. Fun fact about this movie: I took a Chick-fil-A chicken biscuit into the theater in a hoodie in the middle of the summer. Why, you might ask? I was a deviant, I don't know. I just wanted some Chick-fil-A while I watched the movie. This was actually filmed in Georgia. I live in Georgia, and so it feels personal to me when I watch the movie. I'm like, oh, I know exactly where they are. I know that street. I know that highway. How could I not? The way the music is edited with this film as well to match every movement of a character, every line of dialogue. It's brilliant stuff. It's one of the best edited movies I've seen in a long damn time. And B-A-B-Y Baby. It's a really good one. Next, we've got Big Trouble in Little China. Kurt Russell film. I believe this is directed by John Carpenter. Hold on, let me check. It is John Carpenter did the music. Did he also direct? It is John Carpenter, ladies and gentlemen. Kurt Russell, 80s cheese fest. I actually got sent this by Nathan Jones, I think now known as specifically Blu-rays with Nathan Jones. Old friend on YouTube. Go check out his channel if you haven't, but he sent this to me years ago now, so that's crazy. Next, we have the Bourne trilogy. To me, this is a great trilogy that I don't go to often. It's childhood for me in a weird way. My parents watch these movies a lot. I remember them being on the TNT cable channel all the time. And I even watched Ultimatum in a film class in college where we really were hyper-focused on editing that week. And if you haven't seen that movie, there's some real choppy editing, but I like it. It kind of adds to the frenetic energy of the movie. But anyway, if I had to rank these movies right now, having not watched them in a couple years, I'd say Ultimatum's 1, Identity 2, Supremacy 3, very solid trilogy. And I'm actually watching Succession right now, and Brian Cox is in these films, so it's crazy to see. Yeah, there he is right there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's crazy his career over the years. Who would have thought that maybe his defining role would be in the late 2010s after being like a character actor for so long. But the Bourne trilogy, really, really good action films. Matt Damon's the man. Next, we've got Bullet Train. I really ended up loving this movie. I didn't see it in theaters. I just wasn't sold. I was like, it looks like another generic action flick. But it rules. I was so wrong. This movie rules. Tangerine and Lemon, hell of a duo. Brad Pitt's cool as shit. And there's a lot of surprise cameos in this film. I actually watched it on a plane for the first time, which is kind of bizarre if you think about it. On the way to visit my buddy out in California, Trevor, from Film Geeks, bought the movie and watched it again. So I watched this twice in a weekend, then I showed it to my girlfriend later. So I've seen it 3 times in total, I want to say. It was a top 10 movie of 2022 for me, which crazy that was almost 3 years ago. What the hell? Really fun time and one of the better action movies I've seen in a minute. Next, we got Casino Royale. This is, to many, the best James Bond film. I'm not going to argue with you if you think it is. I bought this on 4K. I also own some more Bond films in a set I'll talk about later in the video. But this is the first Daniel Craig Bond film, and it kicks a lot of ass. It looks great on 4K. I believe I watched it a couple years back leading up to No Time to Die, but thrilling watch. And the poker sequence, oh my god, that's riveting stuff. Next, we've got a trilogy that technically is a movie series with 5 films, but I don't own those and I don't want to talk about them. The first one's not only the best action movie in my opinion, but the best Christmas movie, arguably. You've got Die Hard 1, and then I've got Die Hard 2, Die Harder, and then I've got Die Hard with a Vengeance, the third film. This trilogy right here, have a lot of fun with. I actually would say Die Hard, like I'm not lying, is probably my favorite action film. It created its own genre of action movies. John McClane is cool as hell. Happy Trails, Hans, it's super quotable. Die Hard 2, also a Christmas movie. People forget about that. Set in an airport, very comparable to Carry On, the movie that just came out. People are like, Carry On's Die Hard. Yeah, there's elements of it, but it's more so Die Hard 2. And then you got Die Hard with a Vengeance. Samuel L. Jackson, takes place in New York. Simon Says is Simon Gruber, Hans's brother's the villain. Really fun trilogy. And then, unfortunately, we got A Good Day to Die Hard, which is the 5th movie. And, of course, the 4th one, which is PG-13 for some strange reason. Next, we have John Wick Chapter 4. I don't own the first 3 John Wick movies, and they're on my list. They've been on my Blu-ray buy list for a while now. I just don't own them. But I have this one on 4K. Got it on Black Friday last year. 2 years ago, actually. That was 2023. Wow. This is my favorite John Wick movie. Like, the entire last hour, 15 minutes, out of this world. Cool. You've got the whole car chase scene where he's, like, dodging cars in the middle of the street. The stair sequence, the dragon breath scene, the final duel. This is what an action movie should be. Saw it in IMAX. Movie rips. Next, I've got a duology. I don't own the 3rd film. I've got Kingsman, the 2-film collection. Pull them out of their little case here. Kingsman 1, The Secret Service, is the better film. And then I've got Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle. I enjoy 1 more. 2 is a underrated sequel. You've got the Country Road, Take Me Home, chilling moment. But it has a weaker villain. And this film with Colin Firth, the church scene, talk about a one-take like action fight scene. Badass stuff. These are really original action films from Matthew Vaughn, and we need more. Like, we don't have a 3rd one. We have The King's Man, which I don't own because I wasn't crazy about it, but we need a 3rd Kingsman with Eggsy. What are we doing? Let's get on that. I now hold in my hands what I believe to be the premier action franchise of our time. First off, I've got 5 Mission Impossible films. Then I've got a 6th Mission Impossible film in Fallout. Then I've got the Steelbook for Dead Reckoning, formerly Dead Reckoning Part 1. So I'm going to go film by film here. So the 5-film collection consists of Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. And then, of these 5, my favorite is Ghost Protocol. I have fond memories of seeing that in theaters, saw it twice in theaters. I still remember, like, the Carmike Theater I saw it at, real throwback for you guys, and the massive, like, jug of soda that I had with me. It was one of those really large cups. And they also had popcorn bins you could buy and refill every time you went there for $5 or something like that. It was a crazy good deal. But Fallout's the best here. Fallout's the creme de la creme of this franchise. And Dead Reckoning, what a sick steelbook. Look at the back. The awesome motorcycle stunt. Ooh. Can't wait for Final Reckoning. It's my most anticipated film of 2025. Hopefully it doesn't disappoint. And hopefully, I'll like it enough to buy it. I bet I will. But these movies rule. The practical stunts out of this world. And they just get better and better. They're on a hot streak right now. So hopefully the next entry doesn't let me down. Next, we've got No Time to Die. I don't think I've revisited this film since theaters. I own it. I kind of just impulse bought it, and I haven't checked it out since. I'm not a huge Bond guy, but Skyfall, Casino Royale are 2 of my favorites. We'll talk about Skyfall in a second. I, have thought about this ending. Not crazy about it. I need to revisit this one years later. I was actually sick when I saw this in theaters. For some reason, I still went. I remember like sniffling the whole movie. Ugh, what a gross experience. But No Time to Die, yeah. What do you guys think? I don't know. I haven't seen it in so long. Next, we've got a 90s action classic to many, Point Break. I watched this for the first time on my 100 Movies I Missed journey. This was back in 2020? My God, it's been 5 years. Where's the time going, guys? This movie rules, all right? I haven't seen the remake, so I don't own it, but I'm glad I checked this out. Utah, give me 2. I mean, it's quotable. It's really just fun. In the back says the action, surfing, football, fistfights, gunfights, bank robberies, car crashes, skydiving, never lets up. I agree. It's a badass movie. Is it a bit cheesy? Yes, but I kind of eat stuff like that up depending on the mood I'm in. Next, we have a movie that's one I watched a lot growing up, Shooter, with Mark Wahlberg. I think I got this at the $5 bin at Walmart one day, back when that was a thing. This movie was so cool when I was like 12 years old. I was like, this is the coolest movie ever. Haven't watched it in a long time, but Michael Pena really slept on here. He's got some great comedic lines, and Mark Wahlberg, his career's been a weird roller coaster over the years. Next, we have Skyfall, which is the best Bond movie to me that I've seen. I haven't seen them all. I got a lot of homework to do, but Skyfall is right up there with Casino Royale. I remember seeing this one in theaters and being like, oh my gosh, I was like 12 when this movie came out, and I was just in. But yeah, Skyfall rules, and I think it has the best Bond song by Adele. And then we've got Spectre, which I rarely revisit, and because of that, I don't remember much about this film. I remember being pretty underwhelmed in the theater. It's surprisingly a bit boring, which is not what you want to say about a Bond movie, but not the worst of his era, but lower tier. And then we got Speed on Steelbook. I bought the Steelbook in 2020. I was on like a roll, just buying everything for Blu-ray hunts back in the day. And I haven't watched it since I've owned it, but I have seen this movie. The first time I watched it was actually in Anaheim, California. I went out to Disneyland on my 13th birthday. And I don't know why, but my body woke up at 5 a.m. I'm an East Coaster, so I thought it was 8 a.m. And this was like the only thing on TV on Encore. That was the first time I watched it. Movie's awesome. You know, you can't go below 50 miles an hour, I want to say, or 60. I think, yeah, you can't go below 50 or the bus will blow up. Very original concept, and kind of launched Sandra Bullock, I believe. Keanu's the man. I mean, it's really just a badass action movie. And then rounding out the action section, I've got Top Gun, but the better film, Top Gun Maverick. This is one of the most rewatchable movies that's released in my life. I've seen it a handful of times now. It was the event of 2022, the talk of the town, but it's become like a plane movie. If you want to kill like 2 hours, 20 minutes on a flight, throw this bad boy on. It has all the emotions. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll have your fists in the air, I mean, cheering on. This is what a legacy sequel should be, and this is like a blockbuster done right. The first movie, I respect. It's an 80s, classic to many. Doesn't compare to Top Gun Maverick, though. And before I forget about action, this is the last film set of the action series, James Bond, The Complete Collection. This goes from Dr. No to Spectre. So yeah, you can see right here. I have got this set for Christmas one year, and I just never... Oop, that noise was horrible. Apologies. I got this set for Christmas one year, and I just never did my homework. I was going to watch them all before No Time to Die, and then COVID happened, and I was like, So maybe I'll do a big Bond marathon one day before the next Bond movie, but I'm in no hurry to do that, to be honest with you. The next section I have is Adventure, which I feel like is pretty much the same as action, but I like to differentiate because I'm kind of a freak. Kickstarting it, I've got Indiana Jones, The Complete Adventures. It's no secret Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite film of all time, so of course I have to own it. This also comes with Temple of Doom, it comes with Last Crusade, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I have a soft spot for because it was the first indie film I saw in theaters. I saw it with my dad. I've always been like a defender of the film. Nostalgia definitely plays into it, but I think it's overhated. And then when Dial of Destiny came out, people were like starting to realize, oh, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull might not actually be all that bad because Crystal Skull is a much better Indiana Jones film than Dial to me. I'll die on that hill. But no, this is like as good as it gets. If Adventure has a name, it must be Indiana Jones. This box set I've had since, I don't even know, a long, long time, but I love these movies. And try and watch them every year. They rule. Next, we've got another Spielberg film, Jaws. I don't own it on 4K. I need to, and I think if they release something for the 50th anniversary, I'll probably snag it. Hopefully, this one gets a theatrical re-release in 2025 because the movie is now 50. I don't know how. John Williams score, iconic. This is the shark movie. I try and watch this one on the 4th of July because I view it as like a 4th of July movie. And then we've got two films that I adore, childhood favorites, and really like maybe a reason I love film, I'm not gonna lie. National Treasure and National Treasure 2 Book of Secrets. National Treasure 1 is a top 20 favorite movie for me. I quote it all the time, and I tell this story every time I talk about the movie, so if you've been a subscriber for a while, you already know this, but if you're new, you get a new story, look at you. This is a movie that I owned on DVD growing up, and whenever I would go on long car rides, I would watch it. Well, at one point in time, my family went on a trip up the East Coast, including to Washington, D.C., and in that DVD, there was a special game you could play that had like packets in the DVD, and you could go through and decode things and find the treasure yourself. Well, I did that, and it was so much fun. And then we got Book of Secrets, which I actually saw in theaters in like 2007 when this movie came out. 2007, 2008, what does it say here? 2008 Blu-ray release, but I think the movie came out in 2007. I could be wrong. Maybe it was 08. Flip a coin, I don't know. But this movie, not as good. You got Ed Harris as villain here, but I need a trilogy. And I know Nick Cage has kind of said, to hell with that, that's never happening. But my heart would be so full if they ever dropped a third National Treasure. I don't think we're going to get it because they did a TV show, but that's life, you know. Next, we have a trilogy that I adore. I don't own the fourth and fifth films. That's kind of a trend. If there's 5 films in a series, I usually don't acknowledge 4 and 5. Die Hard, for example, Pirates, for example, because that's what's next. I've got Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. I owned these on DVD growing up, and I upgraded to Blu-ray a few years ago now. I want to say like 2020 maybe. This is like a top 20 movie for me. You'll hear me say that about 25 to 30 movies, so eventually it'll just mean nothing, but it is a top 20 movie for me. It is swashbuckling fun and really made me fall in love with these films, but Dead Man's Chest, you could argue, is better. Davy Jones is the villain. The CGI there is outstanding. You got the Kraken. This movie's epic. And then you got World's End, which is the weakest of the 3, but the movie is undeniably epic. That's kind of a word I would apply to all 3 here. The Maelstrom sequence is like an hour-long showdown at the end of the film. The score in all 3 of these films is out of this world. And Hans Zimmer, who composed the third, crushes it. I got to see him in concert, and he played like 10 minutes from World's End, and I was just in. Like the love theme between Will and Elizabeth, whew, chills. These movies rock, and I'm due to rewatch them soon. The next genre is sci-fi fantasy, which probably has too many films in it. I'm honestly probably misgenreing a bunch of these, but I don't really care. First up, I've got Alien, which is a 5 out of 5 for me. This movie absolutely rules. This is a gorgeous slipcover, and I revisited the entire series, including a lot of them for the first time last year leading up to Romulus, which we'll talk about in a second. But Alien, I mean, in space, no one can hear you scream. One of the coolest, most badass taglines for a movie ever. And the Great Movie Ride, which I'll reference again probably in this video, is a ride that used to be at Disney's Hollywood Studios, formerly MGM Studios. It was the centerpiece. It was at the Chinese Theater in the middle of the park. And this ride took you through Hollywood. There was a section of that ride that would put you in the film Alien, and I wish I could go back as an adult and experience that, because I would be so much more excited and happy, because at that time I hadn't seen Alien. I was like a kid when that ride was around. It's no longer around, unfortunately, but that movie rules. You know what else rules? Aliens. And that's right, I've got this version of the film now. I used to own and still own the box set Blu-ray that's about that thick. I was actually sent this by the studio, and so I own the 4K version of the film now. I am no Blu-ray aficionado in the terms of other people that I follow who are like really into physical media. I collect, but I'm not like a specs guy necessarily. Apparently there was controversy around this release, but I watched this 4K and it looked stunning to me. I really dug it, and it was the clearest I'd seen the film, so I was here for it. This movie, badass action. The first film, more so horror. Aliens, you go full action. And then what do you get next? You get Alien Romulus, and I own that bad boy on Steelbook. This was a top 10 movie of last year for me. Now, when I initially saw it, I was so invested, and then the final 15-ish minutes of the movie happened, and I was like, whoa, that was out of left field for me. Or maybe I just didn't expect him to commit to that. I won't say what it is if you haven't seen it, but I need to revisit this one. I need to. I really do think I will love it on rewatch. I've just been putting it off because I have so many other things in the world I'm trying to watch. But it's the 3rd best film in the franchise comfortably. I only own Alien, Aliens, and Romulus. I don't own the other ones. But this is a really gorgeous steelbook. At the back, you can see the Weyland-Yutani Corp logo, which is really awesome. And then, fun little side thing, I do have a VHS of the film. This was sent to me by the studio, and it's gorgeous. This is a functioning VHS. Look at that thing. Sick. It really is cool. So, Romulus was awesome. I just gotta check it out again. Next, we have 1.21 gigawatts. Great Scott! Marty! They found me. I don't know how, but they found me. Run for it, Marty! Oh my god, it's the Back to the Future trilogy. I don't own this on 4K, I desperately need to, but if you couldn't tell by the background, which I haven't even acknowledged in this video, I just realized, I'm filming in a new location in my movie room because I wanted to spice it up. This isn't my normal set. I love Back to the Future, I also love Stranger Things, but got some Cobra Kai stuff over there. This is like my little Back to the Future shrine, so of course I own the films. I try and watch the trilogy every year. 1 is my favorite, it's like my 3rd or 2nd favorite film ever. 2 rules with the sports almanac and you know, going back to that same timeline, but also go to 2015, and then the 3rd's like a Western. I quote it all the time, and I think this is, without a doubt, the quintessential time travel series of films. God, I love me some Back to the Future. I'm honestly due to rewatch it soon. I'm a creature of habit when it comes to rewatching films, and I'll realize this because I have Letterboxd, and I'll see when I watch a movie last, like your activity with the movie. And I usually watch the Back to the Future movies in January for some reason. But next we've got a Spielberg movie, E.T. I was listening to the score before I hit record on this video just to get hyped. The theme, the end credits theme, but also Over the Moon and the Flying theme. Like E.T., awesome movie, and clearly inspired Stranger Things, which is my favorite show. So gotta love some E.T. And yeah, really cool that like the adults in that film are rarely shown. And if they are, like, we see them through the kids' perspective, which I think is really neat. Next, we have Ghostbusters 1 and 2, which I kind of think Ghostbusters 1 and 2 are a bit overrated. Doesn't mean I don't like movies, I own them. But Ghostbusters 2's fine. The first Ghostbusters, I get it's an 80s classic, but I've always had a soft spot for Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I actually think is my favorite Ghostbusters movie and the best. It's a legacy sequel done right. You've got a whole new generation of characters that are lovable, and you feel for them. I've just been able to connect with this film easier than the first Ghostbusters. I don't own Frozen Empire. I may never own Frozen Empire. I liked it when I first saw it. I was like a bit of a defender of the film, but I haven't thought about it much. It's been almost a year and don't really have a desire to check it out again. But moving on, we've got Harry Potter, the complete 8-film collection. Need to get this on 4K desperately. A lot of things I need to upgrade from Blu-ray to 4K, but this is, you know, one of the most, if not the most, immersive franchise out there. It's like comparable to Lord of the Rings or Star Wars in terms of being immersed into this fantasy world. Each movie just continues to build the world so wonderfully, and who wouldn't want to go to Hogwarts or Hogsmeade or be in Diagon Alley? Like, it's just one of those worlds that you want to be a part of. You can almost escape into it, and when you go to Universal Studios in Orlando, you feel like you're a part of the movie, so really special stuff. I didn't grow up with the Harry Potter movies. I watched them when I was like in my late teens for the first time, but I still feel such a deep connection to them. And my favorite of the bunch is Prisoner of Azkaban. I wouldn't rank the rest right now on the spot like that, but I'd say Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite. Next, we've got the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, which I watched for the very first time about a year ago. Watched these all for the first time in 2024. It's now 2025. And we're getting a live-action remake of this film right here, the first one. Don't know how I feel about it. Kind of just seems like it's going to be a shot-for-shot remake, trying to make $1 billion, but that's life. That's the world we live in, right? First film's my favorite. Then I would say 3 and 2 are like really neck and neck, but 1 is one of the best animated films I've seen. I think it's my favorite DreamWorks film. These movies have so much heart, and I love the character of Hiccup, specifically his relationship with Toothless, but over the course of this trilogy, he grows as a person, as a man. He assumes this role of a leader that he was always meant to have. He gains confidence. It's a very uplifting trilogy, and the score, my God, it will give you full-body chills. I'm going to rewatch that trilogy before the live-action remake. Next, we've got The Hunger Games, the 4-movie collection. I used to own the first 2 films individually on Blu-ray, but I lost one of them, and so I was like, I'll just get rid of the other one. And then I bought this set. This is Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay, Part 1 and 2, and I'd say the first 2 are my favorite, Catching Fire being my number 1. You know, this was like the series when I was in middle school to high school. Like, it was a big event to go see the new Hunger Games every year in theaters, and so that was a big deal. And then 2 years ago now, we got The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is probably my most recent Blu-ray pickup, honestly. I saw this at Walmart the other day, and I had missed out on buying the Steelbook. It was like there's just in the middle of a shelf. There was no other movies around it, and I was like, I gotta snag this. So this is a beautiful Steelbook right here. On the back, you got Lucy Gray, played by Rachel Zegler. On the front, you have Coriolanus Snow, and, you know, this is awesome. This movie was one of my favorites of that year, and we're getting another film about Haymitch, Sunrise on the Reaping. It's going to be based on the book that releases in a couple months, so those are the Hunger Games films. I own them all. Then we got Inception, my favorite Nolan film, and truly a masterfully made one. I'm not going to lie, this is one of the best endings in film. Time, the track by Hans Zimmer, I saw live in concert, but it's one of my favorite tracks ever, and of course, you know, Dream is Collapsing. This score, masterwork. Everything about this movie absolutely rules. And what do you think at the end of the film? Do you think it was reality? Do you think it was a dream? I need to know. And then the last one in this genre is going to be Interstellar, which I did not check out in theaters. I know some people personally who got to see the 70mm IMAX release. I was kind of jealous, but I was not able to get around to that. Haven't revisited Interstellar in, I would say, truth be told, almost 7 years now. I haven't gone to it in forever. It's just not a movie I'm called to rewatch often, but man, is it special. It has, again, another outstanding Hans Zimmer score. Nolan directs the hell out of it, and it's a gorgeous 4K release, so gotta have it. Complete lapse on my part. I had another stack sitting right next to me. That was the halfway point of that genre. There's a lot more to go here. I was like, that didn't feel right. So next we've got Jurassic Park, which is another Spielberg film, and to me, one of the best adventure films also. Like, this could definitely be in that genre. I don't know why I have it here, to be honest with you. But, you know, John Williams, his score is so iconic here, and again, Williams and Spielberg, match made in heaven. I also own this movie kind of begrudgingly, Jurassic World. Got this for Christmas the year that it came out, and, you know, I've seen it once or twice in my life. Every time I think about it, I'm like, I like that movie less and less. It doesn't help that the 2 sequels that would follow were really, really awful, but I kept it. I haven't sold it yet. Next, we've got a trilogy that many claim to be the best trilogy of all time. I won't argue with you. It's Lord of the Rings trilogy, and my God, it's only the theatrical version, I know. Shame me if you want in the comments. I've never owned the extended editions. I've technically seen them, I believe, years ago. Like, I don't know. I just view the theatrical versions as the versions. I know that's kind of a hot take, but I need to maybe immerse myself in the extended edition. But I love this trilogy. You know, the theatrical cuts made the theater for a reason. I don't know. That's kind of, and I know some people who are like purists to the theatrical edition. So it's a big debate, I guess. But either way, you got to watch the trilogy. So easy to buy into this world. Lovable characters. This is an adventure if I've ever seen one. It rules. Trilogy's awesome. Next, we've got The Martian. Matt Damon rules in this film. It's directed by Ridley Scott. I often forget. Ridley Scott, very versatile director. He can do it all, you know, sci-fi, horror, adventure, action, epics, you know. This movie, I feel like not a lot of people discuss anymore, but it's a really solid watch. And then I've got the Apes trilogy, which includes Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, War for the Planet of the Apes. Rewatched this leading up to Kingdom. And my favorite is War or Dawn, like flip a coin. Rise is right there. I have the movies in here. I won't pull them out. Let's see. I guess I will. Why not? Rise, Dawn, War. One of my favorite scenes in this trilogy is in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and it's when the power turns on. You guys know what I'm talking about? And we hear that song, Take a Load Off Annie. Beautiful. Really, really well done trilogy. And then I kind of didn't choose to own this movie. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, sent to me by the studio. And so I own the film. Yeah. It wasn't really my jam, so it's kind of just there collecting dust now. Next, we have the Star Wars saga. I've owned this box set for a hot minute. This was like one of the first big Blu-ray purchases I ever made with my own money years and years ago. I saved up for it. Star Wars, the complete saga, including the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. I don't own these films on 4K, but this box set I have a lot of sentimental value with. This is a piece of art to me. You've got Luke Skywalker, Anakin, come on now. I'll actually show you guys the artwork because this is one of my favorites. Flip through here, we've got, oh, the cover fell. We've got, oh, there we go. Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, Empire, Return of the Jedi, and then we got some bonus discs in here as well with some cool features on them, you know? Hell yeah. So this trilogy, the original trilogy, that is, my favorite trilogy of all time, holds a special place in my heart, always will. The prequels I have a big soft spot for, and then you've got, obviously, a lot of other Star Wars content since then, but if I had to, like, just have 6 Star Wars projects forever, I'd pick these 6 films right here. I also own The Force Awakens, which was an event when it came out. It was the first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters. Really holds a special place in my heart, despite the fact that the movies that would follow aren't all that. And we're going to talk about them right now because I'm a completionist freak, all right? I don't know what my problem is. I don't understand. We got The Last Jedi. Thought the steelbook design was really sick when it came out. And when this movie initially dropped, I was in such denial. I saw it Saturday night, the weekend it came out. Went the next morning, saw it again, brought a notepad, and jotted out all my thoughts while I watched the movie. And then I was really fighting myself. I was like, do I like this movie or not? And over the time, it's gotten worse and worse and worse for me. And so, yeah, I don't know why I still own it. I think it's because the steelbook's rare, and again, I'm kind of a completionist freak. And then I bought this on Black Friday really begrudgingly, The Rise of Skywalker. I hate this movie. I hate it. I'm not just saying that. I've seen it once. I've turned it on since then. I can't get through it. I hate it with the fire-burning passion. But it was on sale on Black Friday, and I was like, I gotta own them all. I don't know what's wrong with me. Then we've got Solo: A Star Wars Story, which I actually enjoyed quite a bit. I was really hard on this movie when it initially came out, which was not fair. I went back and watched it again. Really fun heist flick. These are the kinds of Star Wars movies I want to see. One-offs where they're not connected necessarily to the Skywalker saga. If this wasn't Han Solo, if this was just some smuggler, I feel like people would have been more receptive to this film. But unfortunately, he is playing Harrison Ford, and so a lot of people rub the wrong way by that, and to each their own. Next, we've got a Nolan film that came out during the pandemic, Tenet, on Steelbook. This movie will absolutely melt your brain, and you'll have to watch it more than once to fully comprehend everything, but once you reach the end of the movie on first viewing, it's kind of like one of those oh moments. And then if you go watch a 40-minute YouTube video dissecting everything, it's really helpful. Then you go watch the movie again after that, and you might enjoy it more. That's what I did. And that was back in 2020. I went and saw it in theaters, then I watched some YouTube videos and went and watched it again. I was like, okay, I'm digging it. And then rounding out this section, I've got the Twilight Saga. My girlfriend loves these movies, and I actually enjoy them through a certain lens. Like, I think there's a lot of comedic moments here and moments you can make fun of. But also, it's weirdly enthralling. I don't know why. The Twilight Saga, ladies and gentlemen. That rounds out the sci-fi fantasy section for real this time. Next up, we've got the drama section, which has a ton of films comprised of just all sorts of stuff. And I just throw movies in here that I feel like I don't, have as distinctly action, adventure, comedy. So there's all sorts of stuff in here. You'll see what I mean when we get into it. But first up, we've got 8 Mile. This is sort of an Eminem biopic, sort of, loosely based on his life from what I gather. But this gave us the song Lose Yourself, and really that final rap battle, But Clarence's parents have a real nice marriage. Great stuff. Next, we have American Beauty, a Best Picture winner. Watched this movie like 2 or 3 times my freshman year of college with my roommate, and it's a really complex watch. It's disturbing, and it's a dark comedy, but the older I get, the more I think about this movie, and the more the main actor, you can read, the more I think about him in real life, I'm like, this movie is weirdly disturbing, and I'm not drawn to it much, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. It's a weird one nowadays for me to think about. Next, we have Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, with this really cool slipcover. I was in a phase of buying everything at one point, and I got this on eBay. It's actually got a red case, which is sick. But, Birdman, it isn't my favorite. Really liked it when I first watched it, but I found that I've never had the desire to go revisit this one, so I don't know. It was during the 100 Movies I Missed era when I bought that one. Next, we got Boogie Nights, Paul Thomas Anderson. This is a phenomenal film, a 5 out of 5. Not rewatchable necessarily. It's almost 3 hours. It's about the rise and fall of a certain industry. You kind of can maybe tell from the cover art, but Wahlberg's awesome here. Philip Seymour Hoffman's great here. This is maybe PTA's best movie, and it feels very Tarantino. Like, I think Tarantino's even on the record saying, like, he wishes he made that movie, and I can see why. Next, we got The Breakfast Club. Don't you forget about me. This is just an 80s classic. I don't go to it much, but it's an 80s classic. Next, we have Casablanca. Here's looking at you, kid. Another one of those movies that's on the Great Movie Ride. Another Best Picture winner, and just an all-time classic romance drama. It doesn't really get better than this in terms of classics. This is one of the definitive classic Hollywood films, a must-watch for everyone. And I actually went to the Warner Bros. Lot, and I got a Rick's glass. Like, I got a glass from the, his little joint, his little restaurant. So that's pretty sick. Next, we have Castaway, which everyone watched in high school at some point. At least I did. Health class of all classes. Wilson! I'm going to start quoting because I can. Next, we have Catch Me If You Can, an extremely underrated Steven Spielberg movie. One that I watched in forensic science class my senior year. It was an elective I took, and it was kind of because the class was a joke, and you just watch movies and fill out worksheets. But we watched this. Really interesting story. I haven't visited it since high school, but I want to go back to it, and I feel like I would really like it even 10 times more than I do now. Next up, we've got Cool Hand Luke. Sometimes nothing can be a real cool hand. This is a movie I'd always seen clips of growing up because my dad watched it a bunch. Well, I finally watched it in my 100 Movies I Missed project. If you like, prison movies where you're, for example, like Shawshank or The Great Escape, this is one that I recommend if you haven't seen it for some reason. Next, we've got The Disaster Artist, which is a movie about the making of The Room. It's basically weirdly a biopic sort of The Room being made, but it's with James Franco and Dave Franco, and I thought this was like the greatest thing ever when it came out. I think I had it as like my #1 movie of 2017 before I had a YouTube channel. I was raving about this movie. I laughed my butt off in the theater. Like, this was such a cool movie when it came out. I haven't gone to it in years. I'm kind of scared to, but I think I'll still like it. I was of the opinion Franco should have been nominated for an Oscar and damn near won. Some controversy arose surrounding him that stopped that from happening, but still, he's great in the movie, all right? Next, we have a Best Picture winner. I've got a lot of the Best Picture winners in this stack so far. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Got this on Amazon on sale, but I saw this one in theaters, and I really dug it, but I haven't gone to it since. That's a common trend with a lot of movies. It won Best Picture, and then people kind of turned on the movie. Everyone was like, oh, this movie's awesome, and then it won the award, and people were like, oh, it's overrated and mid, so I don't know where I stand on it, but I bought it for $5 on Amazon. Next, we have First Man. My least favorite Damien Chazelle movie. I was a little Blu-ray buying happy at one point in my life. This is a product of that. I don't know if I'll ever watch First Man again, especially when compared to his other movies, but, you know. Next, we have another Best Picture winner. We got a couple more here as well. That's hilarious. Forrest Gump. This is 1994's Best Picture winner. Classic American cinema. Everyone's seen this movie, I feel, and it's so quotable. Next, we have Good Will Hunting. This is another one of those films I could argue is top 20 for me. It reminds you to live your life to the fullest, live with no regrets. And my God, is Robin Williams heartbreakingly great in this film. That's my favorite performance of his for sure. The next Best Picture winner I have on this list is Green Book, which is a controversial one. I bought this when I was Blu-ray happy back in 2018, I want to say, or 2019. It's a heartwarming movie, but not much else to it. I haven't seen it since theaters. I just bought it because I was like, oh, I gotta own every movie. I don't know why I did that. Next, we have The Green Mile, which was on my 100 Movies I Missed project. Fun fact about this movie, it's directed by the director of The Shawshank Redemption, none other than Frank Darabont, who is directing multiple episodes of Stranger Things Season 5, so excited to see what he could give us. But Green Mile is a movie that will wreck you emotionally, so go in knowing that if you haven't seen it for some reason. Next, we have a special presentation of the Disney Movie Club that I got on eBay for like $40, like a long time ago. I don't know why I spent this much on it, but it's worth it. Holes, digging up holes, digging. This is getting a reboot now, apparently. I don't know much about that, but Holes is one of those childhood films that was on Disney Channel all the time growing up. Shia LaBeouf was like the man as a kid, and that movie, I mean, it's super quotable in the weirdest places too. Next, we have another Paul Thomas Anderson film, Licorice Pizza, with Cooper Hoffman, Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, making his debut. You got Sean Penn, you got Bradley Cooper, Benny Safdie. I really dug this when I first saw it, but I haven't seen it since. A lot of movies from this decade specifically, I'll be like, oh, that was really good, and I just have no desire to go back and watch them again. I don't know what that says about me or the quality of film, but it's PTA. It's not as best, it's not as most memorable, but I dug it when I first saw it. Continuing on in drama, we've got Little Women, Greta Gerwig. I saw this in theaters, and guess what? I really liked it, and guess what? I haven't watched it since. Don't know why that is. But I remember the standout here being Florence Pugh. She got an Oscar nom, rightfully so, and this introduced me to Greta Gerwig. So actually, I lied. I just lied to your face. I've seen Lady Bird, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I saw that in theaters. Next, we've got another Paul Thomas Anderson film, Magnolia. About a 3-hour, 8-minute long film. Is that what we're working with here? Let's see if it tells me. It's 188 minutes long, so 3 hours and 8 minutes on the dot. Tom Cruise, robbed of an Oscar win here in the supporting actor role, and Paul Thomas Anderson is just one of those directors who makes these epic films, these really long films that have a lot of subject material to tackle, but his earlier stuff, I stand by this, is better. You know, I'm talking his run in the 90s, Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, even like Punch Drunk Love, I prefer. I feel like at a certain point I lost touch with him a little bit, but he's got a new movie coming out with Leo that I'm excited for still. Next, we've got mid-90s, Jonah Hill. Yes, Jonah Hill from 21 Jump Street, This Is the End. Superbad, that Jonah Hill directed this movie. Very short film. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's A24, but it's a coming-of-age film. It's set in California, and it's this kid hanging out with his friends, experiencing life. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross composed like an EP for the film because there's only like 4 tracks on it. It is an exhilarating or an elating debut. Like, this is just a feel-good kid growing up, you know, movie. Everyone can relate to it, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's super under the radar. I saw it in theaters, but like no one really talks about it. You should give it a watch if you haven't. It's a recommendation I have. Next, we got another Best Picture winner. No Country for Old Men. What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss? I watched this movie, I think, in April of last year for the rewatched, I should say. Showed it to a friend for the first time. He dug it. It is a very well-crafted film. On that rewatch, I was like, I don't know how many more times I can watch this in life, because it can get really bleak at times, but it's a thrilling watch, and it kind of really paints the picture of some of the darkest parts of humanity. Next we have, you guessed it, another Best Picture winner, and my favorite, maybe ever, Oppenheimer. I own this on 4K. It's a masterpiece. I think it might be Nolan's best directed film. RDJ won the Oscar, rightfully so. Cillian won the Oscar. Like, this is just one of those moments. This quote says, one of the best movies of the century. 100%. Like, this is the movie of the decade to me so far. As someone who grew up with history as their favorite subject, like, I was automatically sold. But then Nolan directs it, and it turns into, like, a thrilling courtroom drama. And it's a biopic about J. Robert Oppenheimer, but it's so damn enthralling from the jump. 3 hours feels like an hour 45 to me. Ludwig Göransson's score, my favorite score of all time, and I'm not exaggerating. It's my number one on Spotify Wrapped the past 2 years now. It's really damn good stuff, guys. So, Oppenheimer rules. And oh my god, the streak continues. We've got another Best Picture winner here, Parasite. This is the first foreign film to ever win Best Picture, and Bong Joon-ho crushed it here. I've seen the movie, I think, twice or 3 times in my life. Another one that's not highly rewatchable, but it's so well crafted. The ending will leave you thinking. It's sort of ambiguous in a way, but wow, Parasite, really, really smart movie that switches up about halfway through and will catch you off guard if you're not ready. It takes it to another level. Next, we have The Shawshank Redemption, a film some say should win Best Picture, but you either get busy living or get busy dying, right? What a movie when this scene right here, when he crawls out of the sewer and the score blares, makes you feel alive. That's one of those movies that makes you realize why you love movies when you revisit it. But next we've got The Social Network in this really cool case. You don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies. Let's take it out of the slipcover and so I can show you guys this. Boom. This is getting a steelbook release in this year, actually. On 4K, I might pick that up. I don't know, but this is one of those top 5 favorite movies of all time for me. It's Fincher's best. If you need to kill 2 hours, toss this in and you'll be better for it. It is a really quotable movie. There was a point in my life where I was actually, like, just for fun, and I was like, I'm going to try and memorize Sean Parker's, like, monologue in the club. I had it for, like, a week. I knew how to do it, but I forgot how to do it now. Next, you have A Star is Born, a movie that should have won Best Picture. This movie should have won way more Oscars than it did. Cooper wasn't even nominated for director, which is a crime. Lady Gaga should have won for actress. Cooper should have won for lead actor. I mean, this is another one of those just heartbreaking, devastating watches, but it's so well done and shallow. What a song. I just don't go to it much because I don't want to cry, okay? Next, we got another film that was Oscar nominated, Steve Jobs, and it's written by Aaron Sorkin, the man. This is actually directed by Danny Boyle, who did 127 Hours, Slumdog Millionaire. This is a hot take, potentially. Leo won the Oscar this year for The Revenant. It should have been Fassbender for Steve Jobs. This movie freaking rules. I haven't seen it in a couple years. It was on my 100 Movies I Missed project, but my God, he should have won. He was robbed. Next, we have Taxi Driver, just a Scorsese, De Niro, a classic, really, from the 70s, and a dark movie. Really will make you feel just dirty when you watch it, but a must-watch. And I always talk about it when people ask about Taxi Driver. The Batman director, Matt Reeves, when writing The Batman, listened to the score by Bernard Herrmann, who also composed Psycho. And so, yeah, it's just comparable tonally speaking. Next, we have 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Sam Rockwell won. Honestly, this could have won Best Picture, and I would not have been mad. It's I believe Martin McDonagh directed the film, and all 3 were nominated. McDormand won the Oscar for lead, but just another one of those films that's so well written and just shows, you know, a certain side of humanity and a darkness to it. Next, we have, you guessed it, another Best Picture winner, one of the most iconic ones ever, Titanic. And I actually got this at like a Barnes & Noble, so you can see this is disgusting. I'm actually going to leave this out to use Goo Gone on it, because I finally have some Goo Gone now. But Titanic, I mean, what else is there to say about this movie? There's not much to add. It's James Cameron, it's iconic, it's maybe the most seen Best Picture winner ever, you could argue. Next, we have The Truman Show. In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, good night. I watched this for the first time in like 8th grade in my language arts class of all classes, and this is my favorite Jim Carrey performance by far. Were you rushing or were you dragging? So you do know the difference. If you deliberately sabotaged my band, I will you like a pig. I could quote this movie to an unhealthy amount. I will stop myself. But this is a top 10 favorite movie of all time for me. Darkly comedic, but also a lot to say about artistry, how far one will push themselves for greatness. Masterpiece. I will say that, masterpiece. And then the last one in this section is The Wolf of Wall Street. Leo's best performance, maybe. He's way better here than he is in Revenant, in my opinion. Next, we've got the war section. Don't know why I kind of break these apart from drama and action. I'm just kind of extra like that. First, we've got 1917, a almost Best Picture winner. I saw this once in theaters. It's one of those films that's shot in like the one-take style, kind of like Birdman. Haven't seen this since theaters. I was a little underwhelmed by it. So I would love to go back, you know, and accept this film and praise it like everyone was, but I was a little underwhelmed when it first came out. I just bought it on Black Friday because I was like, oh, I gotta watch this one again. I just wasn't on the hype train. Next, we have Black Hawk Down, which I haven't seen in years. I own it because my brother's friend, he was getting rid of some Blu-rays, and this was one of those, so I took it. I was like, hell yeah, I'll take Black Hawk Down. Josh Hartnett is in this film. We've also got, let's see, I believe Orlando Bloom, Ewan McGregor, Tom Sizemore, Eric Bana. Loaded cast, and it's a Ridley Scott war film, so I gotta check that one out again sometime. Next, we have Braveheart. Best Picture winner. The trend continues. How many Best Picture winners do I own? Comment that down below. You're a real one if you do, if you want to do that math. This is one of the most epic, awesome films out there. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom? Braveheart, ladies and gentlemen. Next we have Dunkirk, but I just have the slipcover because I think my brother or someone borrow it years ago now, and I just haven't got it back. And so I have the slipcover here as like the placeholder, but I might need to just upgrade that to 4K at this point and call it a day. That's what I'm probably going to do at some point. You just got to bite the bullet and do it. Next we have Gladiator, which is a Best Picture winner, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Gladiator 2 came out. I have a review on it. I'll link it up above if you're interested. But I, you know, don't want to talk about the sequel right now. We're talking about the original, baby. You can't beat the original to Best Picture winner. It is Ridley Scott's best film, damn near. And it is one of those movies that just makes you want to run through a brick wall. My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix legions, loyal servant to the true emperor, Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. It's epic, and there's not much else to say about that, really. Next, we have Hacksaw Ridge, Andrew Garfield, Oscar-nominated. One of those just devastating war films. I actually snuck into this one, to be honest with you. It came out right around the 2016 presidential election. It was in theaters, and we got school off on that Tuesday, and me and two of my friends went to this one theater in town where they didn't like ID you. We were like 16, so we were a year shy, and we went and saw this, and they let us in, and we were like, oh my god. So that was really cool. Fun little story. I did some rebellious stuff back in the day. And then we got Saving Private Ryan, the greatest war film ever made. Spielberg strikes again. This should have won Best Picture. It was absolute theft that it didn't. Man, this will bring a grown man to tears. And the opening, when they storm the beaches of Normandy, my AP US history teacher, who did like to dramatize things, mind you, he would walk into class and hit slam on his spacebar because he'd have a video playing like while people walked into class, and then he would just tell some story. And here's what he said about Saving Private Ryan. It was along the lines of this. Ready? In 1998, Steven Spielberg dropped a movie named Saving Private Ryan. Veterans went and saw this in theaters, and they were puking in the aisle at the opening of this film. He loved to just tell crazy ass stories, so he was a hoot. Moving on, I've got like some subgenres here with only a couple movies in each because again, I'm weird like that. The first one is Westerns. I got 3 movies here. Don't know why, but I do. We got Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Paul Newman and Robert Redford are both so cool. And it's got one of those iconic like freeze frame endings. Just a must-see movie. Then we got The Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner, with Steve McQueen, James Coburn in this film. It's got a lot of icons from that era, and it's really one of the first Westerns I saw. Growing up, I watched this movie a ton. It was on like one of those channels, either Encore or like TCM on cable, so I watched it a bunch. And then I actually owned the remake with Denzel, Chris Pratt, Ethan Hawke, directed by Anton Fuqua, so it's got some action, the guy from who did Training Day. Enjoy this film. It's different. I prefer the original, but both are quite entertaining pictures. Next, we've got the Mafia/Mob films, and the first one to kickstart that is, you guessed it, a Best Picture winner. We've got The Departed. It's a crime that Jack Nicholson and Leo were not nominated for this film. Wahlberg was, and he's great. But this is probably my personal favorite of Scorsese's movies. Next up, I've got not one, but two Best Picture winners, and that is the Godfather trilogy, the first, second, and third films. I've never seen the third film, so I own it, I just haven't seen it, but I rewatched 1 and 2 last year, about a year ago now almost, and masterful films. You know, I get why they're loved. They're not overrated by any means. They both won Best Picture for a reason. They're just these mob epics that, you know, you gotta almost watch 1 and 2 back to back. It's well worth your time if you want to experience that. And then the last one in this little section is Goodfellas, which I've seen, I think, once fully in my life. It's fantastic. I don't go back to it much. I'm not drawn to mob movies as much as I once was in terms of like wanting to watch them on a Friday night. Oh, let's watch some mob movies. It's not my go-to, but Goodfellas rules. Next, we got one of my favorite subgenres, sports movies. And kickstarting that, I've got Creed, baby. The first Creed is freaking awesome. I remember seeing this in theaters and being so pumped. And Stallone was robbed of an Oscar win. And then he got Creed 2 with freaking Drago back and his son. Arguably is better. The training montage gets me hype here. Creed 1 and 2, talk about a 1-2 punch. And then you got Creed 3, which I think I'm in the minority on, but that's by far the worst of the trilogy to me. Really just way too cheesy. Anyway, next we have The Fighter. Bale finally got an Oscar for this one, and it's one of those fighting movies that will inspire you, but it's more so about the familial drama behind the scenes than anything else. Then we've got Ford v Ferrari, also starring Christian Bale. Criminally underrated film. Won an Oscar for sound, I want to say. Wow, the steelbook's gorgeous, and I saw this in theaters, and it was so loud in that cinema. My seat was rattling, but this is a great racing film. Matt Damon and Bale have some awesome chemistry there as well. Next, we have one of the ultimate dad movies, Hoosiers. It's one of those basketball flicks that I feel like everyone's seen. And then we got I, Tonya. Sebastian Stan should have been nominated for an Oscar, and I'd say Margot Robbie should have won. I'm gonna say it. And Paul Walter Hauser, shout out to him from Cobra Kai, but also it's funny that Karate Kid is next here. The Karate Kid is an 80s classic. I don't own 2 and 3. I've been looking for that box set of the 3 of them that released on 4K. I can't find it anywhere. It hurts me. I want to own those films. So The Karate Kid, this is my first ever steelbook. I got it at Best Buy, I want to say in like 2014 or 2015. But this one is obviously designed over Cobra Kai. You got Kreese, you got Johnny. Right here, it's put him in a body bag. It's freaking Karate Kid. It's a classic, you know. I can't wait for Cobra Kai Season 6. Then we got King Richard. Will Smith won his Oscar here, of course, after slapping Chris Rock in the face. John Bernthal should have been nominated for supporting actor, but this is a uplifting sports drama. And then we've got a couple more here. Miracle. Do you believe in miracles? Who do you play for? Mike Eruzione, the United States of America. One of the most inspiring sports films out there, and I played lacrosse in high school. My coach would go Herb Brooks on our ass sometimes and make us run suicides at the end. It was really, really painful. Next we have Moneyball, which to me is a top 2 sports movie. Brad Pitt's freaking great in this film, and so is Jonah Hill. But the score by Michael Diana, I believe is the composer's name, criminally underrated. There's a 3-track run on that soundtrack that I listen to all the time when I need to get motivated, and it ends with The Streak. So go look that up if you want a great movie score to listen to while you edit or work or do whatever you do in life. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Chris Pratt. This is a star-studded cast. It's my plane movie now. I watch this on planes all the time. Next, we have my favorite sports film of all time, a top 5 movie for me all time. Remember the Titans. This is a special one to me. I watched it growing up. I've seen it countless times over the years, and I'll always cherish it. So I love the soundtrack. I think it's probably the best soundtrack out there. I was asked this question on a Q&A recently. I went with Remember the Titans. It is so influential in my life, my love of movies, but it's a really empowering, uplifting film that shows how important, impactful sports can be. It's got some intense football games as well, but the characters are lovable, and they form a camaraderie over the course of this film, showing that at the end of the day, we're all humans, and putting aside differences, all that be, personal, racial, whatever it may be, especially during this time period, the game of football kind of brings everyone together. It's a beautiful film, beautiful film. And rounding out the sports section, I've got Rocky, the heavyweight collection. This is the 1st through 6th films. So Rocky, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, Rocky Balboa. Oh, I forgot one, Rocky 5, because it stinks. Everything else in this set, I'm here for. The first Rocky is a Best Picture winner. The streak continues. And Rocky 2 and 3 and 4, you can kind of argue about which one's the best. I'm kind of the opinion now, as a 25-year-old man, weird to say that Rocky 3 might be my favorite. When he's got to train, Rocky's got to go back to his roots, find the eye of the tiger. He's got to train with Apollo. There is no tomorrow. Whew. Next, we have one of my personal favorite sections, the musical section. All these films are essentially musicals, but some of them are like music-based films, like, for example, Footloose 2011. A guilty pleasure of mine, you could say, because I know it's not widely accepted by critics, but it's a movie my girlfriend and I watch a bunch, and Miles Teller's funny telling us he's a Georgia fan, and he makes a lot of jokes that I dig, especially that take shots at the Tennessee Volunteers, and so you know that's right up my alley. But go Dogs, go Footloose 2011. Next we have should have been a Best Picture winner, maybe my favorite Steelbook damn near, La La Land, Here's to the Fools Who Dream. As it says on the back right here, beautiful work of art. This Steelbook is the original release. I got it I went to school, and it was at Best Buy in high school, and I went after school and picked this up, and it was like one of the last ones left, and I was like, oh yeah. Truly a heartbreaking, beautiful film with a soundtrack that I listened to a ton. Next, we have Les Mis from 2012, another one of those movies I watched with my girlfriend a bunch. I find myself singing it often. I'm kind of a musical guy, as you'll come to find. 24601. Yeah. Next, we have the Pitch Perfect trilogy, baby. I own some of these movies because my girlfriend loves them. She probably watches that Pitch Perfect, the whole trilogy, like, all the time. All the freaking time. And so I ended up buying them on Blu-ray one day when we were at Best Buy back when they had Blu-rays, because I was like, why not? Next, we've got Rocket Man. Taron Egerton was snubbed of an Oscar nom. I'm not saying he should have won, but he should have been nominated, and this is maybe his best performance. Rob Stark, that's right, Richard Madden in this film, despicable. Next we have the classic musical, Singing in the Rain. I need to own this on 4K, but Fit as a Fiddle, Ready for Love. I sing this all the time randomly, you know. Moses, I could keep going, but you guys know. Make 'em laugh. All right, I'll stop. Anyway, next we have The Sound of Music, which it's really tempting to want to break out into song and dance every time I pick one of these movies up, and I might just have to do it. The hills are alive with the sound of music. This is a all-time classic, and it's just a feel-good musical. What can I say? Next, we have Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. My buddy Ewan Reviews. You should go check out his channel if you haven't. I did a video years ago now on his channel where we talk about this one. This is probably my favorite Tim Burton film. I watched this more than any others. And it's Johnny Depp, fantastic in the movie. It is dark. It's really dark. And has one of the best twists I've seen. Like, it got me good. Next, we have West Side Story. This is the original. I need to own the new one. It's really grown on me over the years, the Spielberg film. I actually think it's my preferred version now. But this is still classic stuff. And, you know, I listen to it all the time. Specifically, Something's Coming. That's my favorite. I listen to that version from the original over the version from the new one. Next, we have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You know, come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Feel good. But if you go watch this, you know, I watched it before Wonka, rewatched, I should say. Weirdly disturbing through a certain lens. And rounding out the musical section, The Wizard of Oz. This is a classic. Obviously, it had a scene on the Great Movie Ride back in the day. But I rewatched this one recently. It doesn't hold up as much for me. And having seen Wicked, I'm just going to watch Wicked forever. And I can't wait for Wicked Part 2 and to own Wicked, and it'll be in the next collection video I do next year. You might want to get your Christmas sweaters and Santa Claus hats out for this next session, because I've got Christmas movies. I've got so many of them that I have in their own devoted section. I put in some work on Christmas movies this past year, and so, you know, it's a bit nostalgic already for me, because I love that time of year, and talking about it in January is kind of depressing, but we're going to do it anyway. Kickstarting this thing, we've got Arthur Christmas. Saw this in theaters. I enjoy it. I watched it a couple times since then. It's not one I go to every year, but it's a fun little Christmas movie. Then we have Christmas Vacation. You don't want my hot take about this movie. It'll upset you, but I'm going to say it's overrated. It's overrated. I bought it because it was on sale. I don't really watch it every year. I think it's a funny enough movie, but if you didn't grow up with it or you don't watch it every year, you're kind of in one camp, and then there's like the diehards, and there's like two camps of people, and I'm in the camp of thinking it's overrated. It's you know, it's just not one I go to a bunch. Then you got Elf, which I didn't grow up with either, but I actually enjoy. It's a heartwarming one. It's one I do visit every year, and the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. Come on, guys. Then we got Frosty the Snowman. This is the original Rankin Bass like television special. It's like 22, 25 minutes long. I watched it this past year. It still holds up. Then we have the greatest Christmas movie ever, Home Alone. I wouldn't let you sleep in my room if you were growing on my ass. This is so quotable. You're what the French call les incompetents. I mean, I quote it all the time. It's Home Alone, but you also got Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, which needs some respect put on its name. They're both 5 out of 5s for me. The, traps at the end of the film, more elaborate, way more drawn out in this film. Like, there's way more of them. They doubled up. But Home Alone 2 and Home Alone 1 are the perfect holiday season double feature. I have to watch them every year. Then we got How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original, the definitive version of the story of the Dr. Seuss book. But we've also got this year a new edition, the Jim Carrey version. I've infamously hated on this film on the channel, but I've started to warm up to it. My heart's grown just like the Grinch's, I guess. Why, you might ask? My girlfriend loves the movie. I bought it because, it's not really on streaming services as much as you'd think, and she wants to watch it every year, so we watch it every year, and so I was like, I might as well buy it. So I got the 4K for the same price as the Blu-ray on Amazon. So yeah, next we got It's a Wonderful Life. Rewatch this one. It's one of those movies that makes you appreciate everything in life, the little things. It makes you want to rethink your relationships, and it's just a beautiful film. It's an all-time classic, and it's so heartwarming by the end. Then we have the Peanuts Holiday Collection, which has like The Great Pumpkin. It's got Charlie Brown Thanksgiving and Charlie Brown Christmas. So this technically is Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. And Charlie Brown Christmas, the soundtrack, or score rather, it's a beautiful thing. Then we have the Polar Express on Steelbook. I am a defender of this movie. Tons of nostalgia, sure, because I think of, the end of the semester growing up. We'd watch this on the last day of school and have our hot chocolate with marshmallows, and I get, fond memories of it. It's a weirdly disturbing animated film at times, but I love it. I quote it. Josh Groban, if you just believe, that on the soundtrack. Come on. Has my heart forever. Next we have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the original animated short, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town, the original animated short. I went hard on those, I think, a few years ago back in the Black Friday Blu-ray days, back when that was a thing. Then we got a trilogy consisting of the Santa Claus, the Santa Claus 2, and the Santa Claus 3 Escape Clause. That's right. I try to watch the first one at least every year. It's my favorite of the bunch, but 2 contends for that top spot. 3 is the weakest, but still I have a soft spot for it. This trilogy is the holiday trilogy, unless you want to count Die Hard. The third one is just not a Christmas movie. And then the last 2 I got here, the first is Violent Night. David Hopper himself, plays Santa. He's chugging beers, he's kicking ass, he's got a Viking background. It's basically Die Hard, and some of it is just outright dumb, but I embrace it. And we're getting a sequel. I hope Winona Ryder, who plays Joyce in Stranger Things, plays Miss Claus. And last in the holiday/Christmas section is White Christmas. Bing Crosby, Danny Kaye. It's a musical film, so I could put it in the music section, but classic Christmas one that has some great songs and holiday cheer, damn it. Next, we've got the thriller section, not to be confused with the Michael Jackson song. Kickstarting this is an Alfred Hitchcock Essential Collection box set right here. We've got Rear Window, Vertigo, North by Northwest, Psycho, and The Birds. Psycho's my favorite Hitchcock film, followed by Rear Window probably. Then I would say of this bunch, Vertigo and then The Birds and North by Northwest are kind of tied. Dial M for Murder is one I need to own, but Psycho is more horror, and I'll talk about the horror section here in a second. But yeah, own this, and as you can see on the back, we got posters and descriptions. This was kind of my intro to Hitchcock. I used it as like a tool almost, so it's one I recommend if you want to get into Hitchcock. Pick up that set and watch those movies. I'm not a huge Hitchcock guy, but I've seen, I think, 8 of his movies maybe, so yeah, that's kind of a good start. I've got one more to talk about in the Criterion section later on. But next we have Bullet. I watched this growing up. I was a big Steve McQueen guy. I watched, The Great Escape, Bullet, and Magnificent Seven. I've seen Papillon, but this is a classic, and I think we're getting a either remake or sort of sequel directed by Spielberg with Bradley Cooper as Frank Bullet, and I need that in my life. This has one of the best car chases in movie history. Next we have Collateral. Michael Mann, Tom Cruise playing more of a villain, shot digitally in the nighttime in LA. Really sleek movie and just cool as hell. Like, this is a badass film. There's a club scene where that song Ready, Steady, Go is playing. The same one from, what's it called? Born Identity. Wow. Next we have Donnie Darko. This movie will, like Tenet, melt your brain. You will have to watch it twice. I've seen it twice. I don't know how many times I'm ever going to go back to it. It's darkly comedic in a way, but the subject material gets so out there that you really have to think on this film, and it's real one you have to watch with people and discuss for a while after. I watched the director's cut after watching the theatrical cut, and that clarified a lot of things, but still, trippy as hell movie. Next we have Fight Club, which I shouldn't talk about. I was gonna make a stupid joke, but I'm gonna break the freaking rule. Who cares? Yeah, this movie I did a project on in psychology class in 11th grade, and I was supposed to read like the graphic novel or book. I didn't do that. I just watched the movie, and I still got an A+. I got an A+ on it, so sometimes you don't need to read. I'm not condoning that, but I'm just saying you can just watch movies sometimes. Next, we have Gone Girl, a David Fincher 2 in a row, it looks like. I've only seen this once, but man, was it thrilling. And it's got some shock value at one point in the film that might gross you out and make you go, whoa! So, well put together film for sure. We got another Michael Mann movie here, Heat. Pacino, De Niro, first time in a movie together. It has one of the best shootouts in movies. But I believe De Niro's character Neil says something along the lines of, you know, don't get attached to anything you can't walk out on in 30 seconds. I am curious to see what a potential sequel to this could look like, because I heard Michael Mann's doing that. Movie is a must-watch if you're a fan of heists, especially. Speaking of heists, Hell or High Water. Jeff Bridges, Chris Pine, Ben Foster. Saw it once in theaters, went in with a certain set of expectations. It didn't meet those, but I went back and thought on it and talked about it with a friend, and I bought it on Black Friday for cheap. And, you know, I think I'll like this whenever eventually I go back and watch it again. I'll like it a lot more, that is. Next, we have Knives Out. We're getting a third Knives Out this year. I'll be sat. This movie is super clever. It's got a star-studded cast, as you guys can see, and it redeemed Rian Johnson kind of in my eyes because I despised The Last Jedi at a certain point. Next, we have Last Night in Soho, another Edgar Wright film. I loved this when I first saw it. I was like, 5 out of 5. Haven't thought about it since, really. I own it. The movie came out almost 4 years ago, and I just haven't watched it since. So I don't know what effect that is, but sometimes that just happens in movies for me. Next, we have Nolan's Memento. Another one of those films that you gotta watch more than once. I've only seen it once, but after I'm pretty sure I watched like a long YouTube video, it'll break you mentally. We have Mystic River next, which was nominated for Best Picture, didn't win. Clint Eastwood directed this film. I think it might be his best directed movie. Super dark, lots of twists and turns, but Sean Penn won an Oscar here, and he should have. He is great in that film, and really heartbreaking what happens to his character, but it's a really disturbing watch. It's not for the faint of heart. Like, there's some just gross, disgusting subject matter that it's hard to stomach some of the scenes in that. But moving on, we got the Ocean's trilogy, one of the most underrated trilogies around. Ocean's 11 is such a cool movie. I think suave is the word that I would stamp on this if I were to describe the trilogy. Suave, sleek, cool. You got just Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Matt Damon, a bunch of cool dudes doing cool shit. These movies are awesome. And in Ocean's 12, like the laser dance scene, come on. Ocean's 11 is the best movie. 13, you got Pacino in the picture. Like, these are just fun heist movies. Next, we have The Prestige, which is a criminally underrated Nolan film. It's in my top 5 favorite for him, damn near top 3 some days. And again, one of those movies that has a twist that will get you good, I promise. Next, we have Denis Villeneuve's best movie, unquestionably. I know he's done Dune. I know he's done Dune 2. I know he's done Sicario, blah, blah. I don't care. Prisoners is Denis' best movie. It is enthralling. It will hook you in from the jump. Both of these gentlemen right here, Hugh Jackman and Gyllenhaal, should have been nominated and won. They crush it. This movie will lock you in. It is a intense detective thriller involving a father trying to find his kid and a detective who's on the brink of breaking any moment. It is tense, and it doesn't let up till the end. It's so good. So good. It's not very rewatchable because it's very dark, but damn, it will enthrall you, and there are just so many moments in that movie that, I can't even, heebie-jeebies. Next, we have Training Day, which you guys know I have to quote, right? King Kong ain't got shit on me. It's Denzel's iconic line. It won him the Oscar. This movie is sick. It's about these cops in L.A., potential dirty cops. You gotta go watch the movie, but it's like one of the LA movies. And last, we've got Uncut Gems, the Safdie brothers. Adam Sandler probably should have been nominated for an Oscar here. This movie will give you a heart attack. It's anxiety-inducing. And if you've ever gambled, even, you know, if you've ever had a gambling problem, hopefully you haven't, but if you've ever just gambled for fun, you know, here and there, you'll be like, what is this guy doing? It'll piss you off, but it's one that hooks you in. So you got to check it out if you haven't seen it. Now we are moving into the horror section, and I've got, you know, a couple franchises here. One of them interested to see what you guys think of. But anyway, first we've got American Psycho, which is a dark comedy, satire more than anything. I just tossed it in the horror section. Watched this movie probably to an unhealthy extent with my friends at a certain point in life and quote it to an unhealthy extent, but it really sort of showcases the horrors that take place in like the corporate world and makes fun of like those, you know, dude bro finance guys and how far they'll go and how consumed people are with consumerism, frankly. So hilarious movie, also really disturbing, and they're remaking it. I don't know how to feel. So yeah, I got an 830 res at Dorsia, and I just quote that movie really randomly all the time. Next we have Get Out, Jordan Peele's first film, and I don't know if he'll ever reach this height again. Won the Oscar for screenplay, intense stuff, and really is his masterwork. I don't know if he's gonna top it ever. Next we have two movies that I bought years ago, and I don't know why I still own them. Not saying I hate them, but I don't know. I wanted to like them so much. We got Halloween and Halloween 2018. I wanted it to be a thing for me so bad to love this franchise and to watch every Halloween, and I started it in like 2019, I want to say, and then I did it again in 2020, and that was kind of that. After that, Halloween Kills came out. That killed it. Halloween Ends fully killed it, and so, I mean, I respect this movie. I respect this movie for being like one of the first like big slashers, right, post-Psycho, and it kind of started this whole craze. But aside from capturing the Halloween spirit, the movies tend to frustrate me the further they get. Halloween 2018 is a good sequel, so I'm not mad I own them, but I also acknowledge that Kills and Ends kind of fell off, kind of made me rethink what I felt about the franchise as a whole. Next we've got The Invisible Man, directed by Leigh Whannell. The Wolfman movie comes out next week. Wolfman, I think it's just called, also directed by Leigh Whannell. Are we getting a little modern classic Universal monster universe? Because I'd kind of be down for that. This movie was one of my favorites of 2020, which was a kind of weak year for cinema. But this one's got some real twists and turns that'll shock you. Elizabeth Moss crushed it, and talk about an intense viewing experience. Leigh Whannell is slept on, in my opinion. Next we have It. I don't know in Chapter 2. I probably never will. All right, It Chapter 2 is not my jam. It Chapter 1, very solid. Feels like a lot of the other, 80s coming-of-age type movies, except you got Pennywise in the film. Next we've got A Quiet Place on Steelbook. The birth scene in this film is intense. The real standout scene to me, though, is when Krasinski's character is like using sign language to tell his daughter, like, I've loved you, I've always loved you, and then he screams to sacrifice himself. Ooh. And then we've got A Quiet Place Part 2, which I remember the opening of more than anything else. I went to see Black Widow with my buddy in theaters round 2, and they started playing this movie, and I was like, I might just want to watch this again instead of Black Widow again. So A Quiet Place Part 2 or Part 1, which one's better? Let me know down below. Next we have Saw on Steelbook. Pretty sick stuff. This is one of my favorite horror movies out there. The twist is the best twist I've ever seen, probably. It got me to sit up and audibly gasp. I am a Saw fan. In fact, I own Saw 1 through 7 right here, which is Saw 2, Saw 3, Saw 4, Saw 5, Saw 6, and technically Saw the final chapter. Saw 3D, whatever you want to call it. I don't own Jigsaw. I need to get on that. But I do own Spiral, which I think is underrated. An underappreciated entry in the franchise. I have this cool steelbook for it. A lot of the reason I own these movies and like them is because Pretty Much It got me into the series. I watched their commentary tracks with it, and then obviously I liked Spiral. I need to own Saw X and Jigsaw. They're on my list of movies to buy, but my favorite by far is always going to be that first Saw movie. With Saw X maybe being a close second, I do like Saw 2 and 3 if we're talking the trilogy, the first trilogy that is. Next we've got my favorite horror movie alongside Saw and Psycho, Scream on Steelbook. Do you like scary movies? This movie is so fresh, innovative for the slasher genre. It pokes fun at a lot of the stupid horror tropes. It's funny in and of itself. It's got like this murder mystery vibe to it, and it's unique when compared to a lot of other thrillers or horrors, that is, slashers. Then we got Scream 2. Sydney's off at college in this film. I also quite like Scream 2. And then we've got Scream 5, or just Scream, when Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera were introduced to the franchise, injected, some much-needed life into the series. I need to own 3, 4, and 6, and then I'll have them all. Those are on my to-buy list. I really do dig Scream 6, though. It's probably my second favorite of the bunch. Next, we have The Shining. Here's Johnny. These next two movies were sent to me by the studio, and the first is The Sixth Sense, which it's on 4K. I've seen the movie once. It's Shyamalan's best movie by far to me. But that's not the only Shyamalan movie they sent me. They sent me Signs, which I have not seen. I will be watching this at some point, hopefully this year, maybe towards spooky season more so, but I know of the film. I haven't seen the film. I think I kind of know the gist of it. I think it involves aliens, but I don't know if that's like the big twist or not, so don't tell me. If it is, then I kind of just know what the whole movie is, but if it's supposed to be a twist that there's aliens involved, then oh no, I just got spoiled. I've kind of known that forever. The last two I've got in this horror section, the first is John Carpenter's The Thing. Watched this in 2020 for the first time. The practical effects here, stunning, especially for an 80s film, and like the gruesome horror based on those practical effects, it's gonna scar you. There's some real messed up stuff. And the last movie is Us from this section, the second Jordan Peele film, this gorgeous black steelbook. Us is a step down from Get Out, but it's one of those movies that's real trippy and has a reveal at the end that will make you kind of get chills. It's well crafted for sure, and he just knows what he's doing in the horror genre. Next we have Tarantino. I have him in his own section because he's just built different, okay? I feel like he deserves it. I have all of his films except for one, and you might be able to guess which one that is. But first we've got Reservoir Dogs, his first film. Really just a movie that shows us, hey, this is Tarantino's style, this is the dialogue he writes with, and it's got his distinct style all over it. Stuck in the middle with you, you'll never hear the same after it.
The next day.
So the power went out in the middle of filming this video. I can't make this up. This is the next day. I'm wearing the same exact outfit for continuity's sake, but I want to let you know that winter weather got the best of me, and the power was out for like 2 hours, so couldn't continue filming, and that's that. So I said, I'll just pick back up tomorrow where I left off, and the movie I have is Pulp Fiction. I'm in the Tarantino section, and I got a new ice cold Dr. Pepper here, right here, Dr. Pepper Zero. Can't beat it. But let's continue with Tarantino like nothing happened. So I got Pulp Fiction right here. This was actually sent to me by the studio. I did a little unboxing video of it. It's a cool 4K release, and inside you've actually got the film in this cool little art digibook looking thing right here, and there's a cool little pop-up of Mia and Vincent Vega at Jack Rabbit Slim's. Pretty sick. Let me look at that again. Yeah, that's really cool stuff. So glad I own this on 4K. I owned it on Blu-ray prior, and I still own it on Blu-ray. I just don't have the Blu-ray on display because, honestly, this is a way cooler release. On the back, you've also got, the definition of pulp, which we see in the opening of the film. So Pulp Fiction may be Tarantino's best movie, but not my favorite anymore. A couple have overtaken that. Then we got Jackie Brown, underrated Tarantino flick. Michael Keaton's in this film, Samuel L. Jackson, Robert De Niro's in this film, you got Bridget Fonda, Robert Forster was Oscar nominated here. Tarantino's dialogue is just unmatched, and that was when he was doing like crime dramas back in the 90s, and he was on a roll. Then we got Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2, the whole Kill Bill, epic. The whole Bloody Affair is, I believe, when they're like put together as one film. I've never watched that, but I do own the two films right here. I think I watched these on my 100 Movies I Missed project. Might have been the year before, honestly, but I prefer Volume 2, I want to say, which is maybe a hot take, I don't know. Volume 1 has like the massive fight, showdown, sword fight with like 100+ deaths at the end of the movie. Volume 2, we kind of get more backstory. It's a lot more dialogue-driven, feels more classic Tarantino. I'm a fan of both, but they're not as high on my Tarantino ranking as you might expect. They're probably lower. A lot of people have those movies really high. Then we got Inglourious Bastards. This movie could very well be his masterpiece. If you know, you know. I eat this one up. I quote it often, and I need to own it on 4K. But yeah, Inglourious Bastards, star-studded cast. Damn good film. Damn good deal. Then we got Django Unchained. Leo should have been nominated as Calvin Candy. Despicable human being. Violent as hell. I remember this got like a Christmas Day release, and I saw the trailer and the previews tons in theaters and, on TV back in the day. But Christoph Waltz won an Oscar here. He also won an Oscar here. How could I forget to mention? He's 2 for 2 with Tarantino, so hopefully the two of them work together again in the near future because we need that as a society. Hopefully for the 10th film, Christoph Waltz makes an appearance. And then I got The Hateful Eight, the 8th film by Tarantino. This actually has a cool slipcover that opens up, and you got that nice artwork. I love little attention to details like that. But Hateful Eight is lower on my Tarantino ranking. It's not a bad movie by any means, but in terms of his films, this one, especially that first hour and a half, is very long and drawn out to the point where, the second half of this film is just so much better that the first half feels kind of like Not a chore to sit through, but it can. And the last Tarantino film I have is the 9th film from Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. My personal favorite. Saw this in theaters, loved it. It's one of those movies that I've seen tons of times with my buddies, and we quote it all the time. Just the most random lines that if I were to quote them, people would be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, it's from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But Brad Pitt's Cliff Booth here, the king of cool in movies, really has, a nice 60s soundtrack, and if you like movies about making movies, this will be right up your alley. It's one of those ultimate hangout movies, and to me, it's maybe Tarantino's most rewatchable. It's aged like fine wine. I loved it when it came out. I love it now. Can't get enough of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I need to own Death Proof. That's the only Tarantino film I don't own, and obviously we need it as a 10th film, which I don't think will end up being his last. I think he's going to end up doing more, because he can't help it. I will pick it up on Blu-ray. And if you couldn't tell for Tarantino, I had them in order of release. But moving on, we've got the comedy genre, which has some of my, all-time fave comedies in it, and movies that they're comfort movies that make me laugh my ass off. The first being 21 Jump Street. I would argue my favorite comedy. I've seen it dozens of times throughout the course of my life. I quote it all the time, and then, of course, paired with that, I've got 22 Jump Street. Very worthy sequel. We need 23 Jump Street. There were rumors forever that they were going to do like 23 Men in Black. Don't know why, but I'm glad we have this duology. These are comfort movies for me. I watched them all the time in high school, and some of my favorite comedies easily. Then we got Animal House on 4K. Only seen this once. I bought this when I was like Blu-ray buying happy. I'm not saying I regret purchasing it, but I've seen the movie once. It's a comedy classic from the 70s. It's the ultimate dad movie. Like, my dad loves this. My girlfriend's dad loves this movie. And it's a really cool slipcover. It's just not a comedy film I go back to all that much. Then we've got The Big Lebowski on Steelbook with a white Russian on the front and some bowling balls as the ice cubes. You already know this is one of the funniest damn movies ever. On the back, we've got The Dude Abides. Another one of those movies I'll quote with friends. John Goodman's character, Walter, is the standout to me. Steve Buscemi's hilarious, of course. Jeff Bridges. All-star cast here. Hilarious film. This is actually the Coen bros. They would go on to win, Oscars for, like, No Country for Old Men, which is crazy. Then we got The Big Sick. I saw this in theaters. Not a lot of people probably can say that. But this is Kumail Nanjiani. This was my first exposure to him. It's a, rom-com about their story and falling in love. And the funniest scene in this movie to me is when Kumail's character goes to a drive-thru and he's asking for a burger with 4 slices of cheese on it, and he just goes off on the dude on the other end. Then we got Clueless on Steelbook. I blind bought this film because my girlfriend recommended it. I watched it once, I dug it, but again, this is from the 2020 era of me just buying everything. I would go buy 5 movies at a time at Best Buy. I was an addict back then. But this is a cool Steelbook. It's got the same pattern as the main character's dress. And Paul Rudd, young Paul Rudd in that film. That man doesn't age. Can we all agree? Then I got Dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. It's a comedy classic. Last time I rewatched this one was 2 years ago. It's a great movie to throw on with a group of friends and just laugh hysterically at it. It's got some raunchy comedy, highly offensive stuff. It came out in 2004, but a comedy that everyone's got to see at least once, right? Then we got Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is iconic. Frankly, there's not much else to say. It may just be my favorite John Hughes film, and what's crazy is, I mentioned this earlier in the video, but I'm watching Succession, and Alan Ruck plays Cameron in this film, who wears the Red Wings jersey, and he plays Connor Roy in Succession. It's so weird to see him all these years later. Those are the only 2 things that I remember ever seeing him in. Then I got The Hangover, which is one of the definitive comedies of the 2000s. It was referenced and quoted all the time. I've never seen the other films. I actually got this as a part of a Blu-ray haul from my brother's friend who was getting rid of some Blu-rays, and so I hadn't seen it before I owned it. Well, I watched it with some friends. Very funny. Again, raunchy 2000s comedy, and one of the standouts from that era. Then I have Horrible Bosses, which I also got from that Blu-ray haul. This is a stacked cast. I mean, let's run it down. You've got Charlie Day, who you gotta love as Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Jason Bateman, Jason Sudeikis, Colin Farrell, Jennifer Aniston, and then he who shall not be named. But Jamie Foxx plays Mother Jones in this movie, and this is just, it's a wild concept. Another one of those movies it's great to watch with friends. The second one, you could argue is funnier. You got Chris Pine and Christoph Waltz in it. But yeah, this movie is freaking hilarious, and it's just a dude comedy, that you want to watch when you're hanging out with your friends. Then on completely opposite end of that spectrum, we've got Mean Girls, which is, I would say, a modern-day comedy classic. It's so quotable. It's just referenced all the time in pop culture. On Wednesdays we wear pink. And yeah, this girl right here is in the movie Hot Frosty. Avoid that at all costs, please. But you have Lindsay Lohan front and center. You got Regina George, played by Rachel McAdams. You got Amanda Seyfried. Like, this is a stacked cast. Tina Fey, obviously. Amy Poehler. Comedy classic. I never saw the musical that came out. I think that was at the beginning of 2024, but I never actually saw that one. Then we got Napoleon Dynamite, which I picked up on eBay years ago. This is a very dry comedy. It's one that's super easy to quote, but I don't go back to it all that much. But there was a time in my life when I was like obsessed with this movie a long time ago. And I watched it with a buddy like 2 or 3 times over the course of, I want to say, a summer. And I was just like, this is the funniest thing ever. And I just haven't gone back to it since. But the dance scene always gets me when Canned Heat is playing. But there are just so many like obscure lines. Like, obviously, Your Mom Goes to College was a big one. There was this kid growing up who would quote that a lot before I'd seen this movie. And I was like, what is he saying? And then I just watch it, and it's like its own distinct, dry humor. It's one of a kind, truly. They really don't make movies like that, and I don't know if they'll ever make another movie like Napoleon Dynamite again. Then I got No Hard Feelings. This came out in 2023. It was a surprise of the year. It's like an R-rated comedy that goes for it. Andrew Garth Feldman has like a moment where he sings Man-Eater on the piano by Hall & Oates, and it's like beautiful. So yes, the movie's funny, it's raunchy, but at the same time, it's really heartfelt. And you wouldn't think that if you knew the subject matter, so I'd give it a chance if you haven't seen it. Then I got Old School. I picked this up back in 2020. I mean, you want to talk about raunchy comedies? This might be one of the most crude of the bunch. It could just be the most offensive comedy ever made, but damn, is it a hilarious concept. Vince Vaughn shines. Will Ferrell as Frank the Tank. I mean, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. It's just 2000s comedy. You know who directed this? Todd Phillips, who directed Joker. Crazy, right? His career trajectory. Then we got, oh my god, maybe the funniest movie I've ever seen. Maybe The Other Guys. I love this movie. I used to own the theatrical cut on DVD, and I would watch it with my friends, like when I was way too young to be watching. I mean, not really. I was technically like around the PG-13 age, but this movie is wildly inappropriate for someone that age to be watching. And the older I get and go back and watch it, the more jokes you sort of understand with time, with age. My God, is this movie comedy gold. I laugh hysterically anytime I just think of a scene, but when I watch it, I just can't help but get a good chuckle out of it. Michael Keaton is an MVP here. You've obviously got The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, Aim for the Bushes, Desk Pop. There are so many bits here. The funniest scene might be when they find the Prius and what happened when Dirty Mike and the boys got involved. God, this movie is infinitely rewatchable and quotable. And you gotta love some other guys. It's maybe Will Ferrell's funniest movie. Next, I've got Saturday Night. This is a new addition to the collection. I got sent this by the studio, and this is a top 5 movie for 2024 for me. It's got a stacked cast, and everyone's playing a comedy icon from SNL because the movie's actually about the first SNL broadcast, like the events, the hours leading up to it, and it's freaking great. Like, I was just into it. It's my kind of movie. It's not like a straight up comedy. I just have it in this section because it's Saturday Night Live, the movie, pretty much. But yeah, if you see on the back, it's picture perfect. Like who they cast to play who, spot on. And this is my kind of movie. It's real sharp with the dialogue. Then we got School of Rock, and if you wanna be a teacher's pet. What a banger of a song. This is a gem of a movie, truly. And I remember watching it as a kid often and just enjoying it, loving it. Oh man, Jack Black, this is his most iconic role to me, and that movie will always be famous. Then we've got She's the Man. I actually enjoy this movie. Amanda Bynes goes undercover, essentially, as a dude so that she can play soccer at like another school. I forget the exact plot, but Channing Tatum's in it. It's really cheesy at times. It's really surprisingly well written, though. Like, this movie, on paper, you might be like, that's absolutely stupid, I'm not watching it, but you should give it a go. It's also one that I own because my girlfriend likes it, and so I have easy access to toss it on whenever I want to. Next, we have Silver Linings Playbook, which is one of those like drama comedies, but I threw it in the comedy section. Jennifer Lawrence won her Oscar for this film. Bradley Cooper was nominated. De Niro was nominated. I want to say one of the other supporting actresses was nominated, but this movie is freaking amazing. It's a 5 out of 5 for me, and I adore it. It's a special one, and it'll make you almost tear up when you watch it at the end. It's just such a sweet movie that tackles a lot, mental health, all that jazz. It's a beautiful, beautiful watch. Then I got Step Brothers, one of those comedies that was the talk of the town when I was growing up in middle school and high school. Like, everyone loved this movie, and I feel like you either love or hate Step Brothers. I loved it at a certain point in my life. I may have reached my max amount of views for Step Brothers, meaning I've seen the movie so many times that I don't know if I'll go back to it ever again, but I own it, and it is deemed the funniest film ever by some. Next, I got Superbad on Steelbook. I would say if I were to give like a Mount Rushmore of funniest movies out there, this has to take one of those spots. And it's crazy because, like, obviously you've got Michael Cera and Jonah Hill as like Seth and Evan, but the funniest characters in this film are actually Bill Hader and Seth Rogen, the cops. Like, their lines get me. One of the funniest lines in the movie, it's like a lot of people are probably like, that's not even funny. It's when the cop played by Bill Hader, they're at like a bar with McLovin, and he like is about to quote Yoda. They're either in the cop car or in the bar, and he's like, you know, Master Yoda from Attack of the Clones. It's just like, God, that's so funny because Attack of the Clones is like panned as the worst Star Wars movie by many, and especially at the time this came out, that's just such a, it's that detail. I don't know why that always makes me laugh, but when they're blasting Panama by Van Halen, doing donuts and throwing beer bottles, like, how could you not love that movie? It's like a modern day raunchier Dazed and Confused. Then I got Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. I don't go to this movie as much, but I think this was like the beginning of the run for Adam McKay. Let me check. Yeah, Adam McKay directed this. He directed the other guys, Anchorman. Him and Will Ferrell, match made in heaven for a bit there. Comedy classic from my childhood, but not one that I revisit all that much. Then we got Ted on Blu-ray. I've never seen Ted 2. I need to own it. I need to watch it before I watch the Ted show. But I tossed this on for the first time in years this past year. Funny movie, not quite as funny as I remembered. But McFarlane and Wahlberg have great chemistry, and my favorite scene, one I watched all the time, it's when John, I believe that's the name, right? John Bennett is rattling off the white trash names to try and guess who Ted was dating, the cashier. Real funny Boston movie. Then we have a movie that I swear when I first watched might have made me laugh harder than any movie I've ever seen. This Is the End. This is Danny McBride, Jay Baruchel, James Franco, Craig Robinson, Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, and more. I hysterically laugh anytime I watch this movie. I almost peed my pants the first time I saw it in 10th grade. It rules on every level, and the funniest character by far, and if you don't agree, argue with the wall, it's Danny McBride. Steals the show here. This is a movie that I can't even quote because of how, like, offensive it is, but there's a scene involving these two. And you know what I'm probably talking about, but I can't even get into it. But man, the movie's just so funny. And then if we're talking Mount Rushmore funniest films, this has to be on there, Tropic Thunder. If you love movies about making movies, Tropic Thunder's for you. The opening previews, the fake previews that they made for this film, that kind of tells you everything you need to know. It sets the tone for what you're about to watch. Satan's Alley, I believe, with Tobey Maguire and Kirk Lazarus, played by RDJ, is one of those previews, and I was asked about that in a live stream once. It's still one of my favorite questions I ever got. It was like, who would direct Satan's Alley? It was so funny. But no, RDJ Oscar nominated here. I mean, Bill Hader's got a role. McConaughey's in here. Tom Cruise, Les Grossman, maybe the MVP. I quote it, I'm not going to say daily, but almost. Like, I will be hanging out with my friends, and I'll go into the Les Grossman monologue on the phone, you know, when he's going off. Oh, man. And the last comedy I have here is Zombieland. Only seen it once, but I need to watch it again soon because it's got Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, and Abigail Breslin. And I have never seen Zombieland Double Tap, but I first watched this movie in like 2019 in college. Bought it for $5 at Best Buy. It was on sale. Never watched it since then, so I am due to rewatch this and then maybe watch Double Tap one day. Next, we've reached the largest genre by far. This is the superhero genre, the comic book movie genre. I'm pulling up my freaking sleeves, and I'm taking a hit of Dr. Pepper Zero. I'm not sponsored. I'm just doing this because I love the drink. Great stuff, but no. So let's dive in. I'll start with a non-MCU. I have the MCU separated. And these are my non-MCU superhero films, alphabetized. First, we've got Aquaman. I don't know why I own that. I just threw it on the ground. Then we got The Batman, which is my favorite Batman film. What a gorgeous steelbook, by the way. Can you guys see this thing? Let's open it up and see if we got any goodies inside. There's the discs. I was going to show you the art, but this is the best Batman movie. It's a detective Batman, and I'm sick to my stomach that I haven't watched The Penguin yet. I love this movie. I haven't seen it since 2022, but I've seen it 3 times, and I love it. I adore it. It's my favorite Batman film. Pattinson crushed it. Underrated Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, one of the best comic book castings out there. And of course, Oz, played by Colin Farrell, standout. So I know I would love the Penguin. I'm going to get on it, though. Trust. I'm going to watch the Penguin, and I don't know where I'm going to share my thoughts on that, but I'm running out of room over here on my little side table. Hold on, I'm going to put this here. Hopefully I don't spill anything. But I need to watch the Penguin desperately. Next, I've got a trilogy that some would deem the best comic book trilogy or just best trilogy of all time in general. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Look at this slipcover. It's like a digibook from Target. I got it for Christmas one year. So sick. Begins, great start to the trilogy, but my least favorite, which is a hot take. Dark Knight is the best of the bunch, and it's just an all-timer. You could say it's Nolan's best film. Ledger's Joker carries the film, and I mean, you get a performance like that in a movie, how is it not like 5 out of 5 automatically? And then I got The Dark Knight Rises, which I'll show you guys this rare, I think, digibook. It comes with some really cool stuff inside. I got this for Christmas in 2012, and man, I saw this movie opening weekend in theaters, and it's a really cool one. I don't know if you guys can see good, but it goes from Bane to Batman. So that trilogy's freaking awesome, and I don't watch it as much as I should, but I'm due to rewatch it soon, which is a common thing I say about a lot of movies, because it's true. I need to watch more of my favorites. I just don't really give myself the time of day to do that. Next, I've got BVS on Steelbook. This was 100% the product of an impulse buy. I don't know what was going through my head. There was a point in time, it was the beginning of 2021, where I was trying to get really into DC, but it was the DC EU. It was not the new DC. And so I was like, I gotta buy these movies again and rewatch them, and this was a product of that. I won't lie, one of the coolest Steelbooks I own, okay? But the movie itself, heavily flawed. The Ultimate Edition's the only way to go. I rarely see myself going back to that, if ever. I'm kind of very burnt out on that era of DC. So some of these movies I own is a product of that, and I probably need to get rid of them, to be honest. This might be one of them. Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey is not a bad movie. Ewan McGregor's Black Mask was the standout. We needed more Harley Quinn in that era anyway. We're probably never going to see Margot as that character again, which is sad. She's so awesome in the role. But I bought this movie kind of, I think my friend actually sent it to me, so I don't know what I'm saying. But next we've got 2 comic book films. I don't have the third in this because the third's an MCU movie. I have these separated. This is Deadpool, the original slip, and Deadpool 2, which I also like quite a bit. Now, this is one of the most rewatchable comic book movies out there. Like, undoubtedly, I saw this a bunch when it first came out, and it was just so fresh. It was an R-rated comic book film. It broke the fourth wall. It was hilarious. Then you got Deadpool 2, which is a step down to me. But, you know, we do get Josh Brolin's Cable, absolute standout. The way this movie ends, and like the post-credit scenes with Deadpool taking like Cable's time turner, I don't think they could have envisioned it better aligning with Deadpool and Wolverine. Like the way that, like imagine if Deadpool 2 ended and right, they hadn't gone the route of him getting the time turner. How would they have written Deadpool and Wolverine for him to have gotten involved with the TVA? It would have been a tough sell. Tough to do. Then we got Joker. Rewatched this before Joker 2. Didn't hit the same. And I feel like as time goes by, this movie will kind of lose relevance in my life, and I'll just never go back to it, which is sad. Then I got Logan. This comes with the Logan Noir, which I think is like the black and white version, which I never watched, but this is a really cool slipcover. I got this back when it first released, and Logan, one of, if not the best X-Men films. You know, if we're going with X-Men in the title, I'd probably say something else. But if we're going not that, I'd argue that, you know, you could say Deadpool, you could say Logan, you know. Next, I got Shazam, cool slipcover. Don't know why I own it. Then we got Sky High. What a gem from my childhood. This movie is special to me in many ways. I'm nostalgic for it. But it is like a high school coming-of-age flick. Nicholas Braun in this film, he's Cousin Greg in Succession. That's become a trend. Who would have thought that Disney Channel star Nicholas Braun would go on to be in Succession? Not me, and that's his most memorable role, by the way. A superhero high school in the sky. Like, as you're a kid and watching this, you think this is like the most insane, out-of-this-world concept ever, and you can't help but just love every second of it as a kid, and it still holds up to this day. Some of the visuals don't, but the story does. And the soundtrack bangs, too. Next, we've got, I would say, my favorite comic book trilogy of all time. Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. I eat this thing up. I was able to see all 3 films in theaters for the first time this past year with the Spider Mondays that they did. And, oh my gosh, the first Spider-Man movie, you can see on the back right here, that first Spider-Man movie has my heart. Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe. MJ and I, we're going to have a hell of a time. I mean, I find myself quoting Dafoe's Goblin more than most villains. More than, like, Ledger's Joker, to be honest. Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock, outstanding sequel. And then Spider-Man 3 is just a meme, but there's way more heart than people like to let on. Like, it's actually a much better made film than I think people give it credit for. So, gotta be my favorites. The comic book movie trilogy I go back to almost every year, and I don't do that with Dark Knight. So, next we have a duology, 2 films. We're getting a third in 2028, if I had to guess, which people are gonna be like, no, but we'll see. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse, I stand by this, is the better movie. It's more complete. It could stand on its own as a one and done. And Miles Morales and the Leap of Faith, talk about an impactful moment. This movie, fantastic origin story. Then you got the follow-up Across the Spider-Verse, bigger in scale. You can see there's like hundreds of spider variants here. It still has its moments to shine, but it does kind of right at the end go, hey, to be continued, ladies and gentlemen, and that's a bummer. It wouldn't hurt as bad if we didn't have to wait as long, but we're going to have to wait a while. But let's talk about the slipcover. Both of these, gorgeous. In fact, both of these movies are works of art. The animation is unlike anything we're seeing right now and probably will ever see. Next, we have The Suicide Squad, James Gunn film. This is the best DCEU movie. It's the crowning jewel of that cinematic universe, and I'm so glad that some of these characters are being brought back in James Gunn's DCEU. Peacemaker's getting season 2. Most importantly, King Shark, I'm gonna spoil it. King Shark may or may not be coming back in a recent show you got to catch up on if you haven't seen, so lots to be excited about. And we got a couple more here for the non-MCU stuff. We got Wonder Woman, which Wonder Woman 84 is garbage, hot garbage. This movie, however, solid. I haven't seen it since theaters, though. I own the movie, and I have not gone back to it for some reason. And then I've got I actually have a solo copy of this one, so I'll talk about it. X-Men First Class. I got this as a part of that Blu-ray haul I was talking about earlier where my brother's friend gave me some movies. First Class solo, so I own that. But I own it again in this almost like out-of-print, it's X-Men 2-film collection. It's First Class, it's Days of Future Past, and it left room for the disc for X-Men Apocalypse, and I put the disc in there. So I have Apocalypse in here as well. So this is technically a trilogy. I've never seen X-Men Dark Phoenix. It's the only X-Men film I've never seen, and I've heard it's not even worth watching. So there's that. But I do need to rewatch probably all the X-Men movies eventually and do a ranking, because I was going to do that before Deadpool and Wolverine, and just time got away from me. But those are the non-MCU movies, and now let's just go ahead and run through the MCU. You guys know the drill. This is a big fat stack of movies. I hope it doesn't fall over. First up, we've got Iron Man, which is, to this day, one of the best MCU films to me. I'm a defender of this film, not that I need to be, but people are like, oh, Iron Man hasn't aged well. I'm like, what are you talking about? That movie is the start of this whole universe. Let's put some respect on it. Then I got The Incredible Hulk, really cool slipcover, and green. I found this on eBay. A lot of movies you can get for cheaper on eBay, especially the out-of-print stuff you can find. And The Incredible Hulk's a weak MCU movie. It's the outlier of the MCU. It doesn't even feel like a part of the cinematic universe, but, you know, it is what it is. And then we have Iron Man 2. A lot of these movies I got on like eBay or Mercari for reference. I have a major soft spot for this movie. I saw it in theaters with my grandparents and my brother back in the day. It was the first MCU movie I saw in theaters. I had the DVD. I upgraded to Blu-ray eventually. The suit-up scene right here. Ooh, come on, it's so cool. If you hear my cat meowing outside, he loves to do that. Then we got Thor. Saw this one at the Dollar Theater back in the day, but technically still saw it in theaters. Every MCU movie post Iron Man 2 I've actually seen in theaters. Thor, it's solid, but it's not one I go back to a bunch. Then we got Captain America, the First Avenger, which gave us Bucky, it gave us Peggy, and of course it did give us Steve Rogers. Solid, but again, not one I visit all that much. And then rounding out Phase 1, we've got The Avengers. I was actually sent the slipcover after the fact. I never had the film with the slip. Someone sent me the slip, and that was much appreciated. Look at that beautiful thing glisten. This movie is cinema, I'm going to say it. It still holds up to this day. It's a very influential MCU movie. It's the first big team-up we ever saw. And yeah, the movie is special, guys. Very special movie right here, The Avengers. Now we're getting into Phase 2. We've got Iron Man 3. This movie pissed me off when I first saw it, and I've never fully forgiven it. But it's not as bad as I once remembered it, I don't think. Then we got Thor, probably the worst MCU movie, Thor the Dark World, that is. Right up there with Love and Thunder. Still a cool slipcover, though. Now I've got Captain America the Winter Soldier. This movie's a bit overrated. To me, I've seen people say this is the best comic book movie, the best MCU movie. I disagree on both counts. It is one of the best action films in the MCU, but overall movie, personal preference, I'd have it somewhere in the 12 to 10 range. It's still highly rated for me, but I do think it's a bit overhyped, personally. Then we got Guardians of the Galaxy. Talk about just a refreshing MCU film that took a risk and paid off big time. This family, this Guardians family, I love them. Gotta love them. Then we got Avengers Age of Ultron with the red case. Super sick. I remember seeing this in theaters. Like, I was in, I think, high school at the time. I saw it with my brother. We went like that Friday night. Oh my gosh, what a time that was. And then we got Ant-Man, which ends this phase of the MCU, I believe. The black case is really cool here. And yeah, Ant-Man, refreshing. It's a heist film in the MCU. Lots of fun. Another risky MCU movie that paid off for him. Getting into phase 3, we got Captain America Civil War. Still a top 5 MCU movie to me, and I've said this a billion times on the channel, but I mean it. It handles conflict better than any film in the MCU. Then we've got Doctor Strange. Real trippy, visually maybe the most unique of the MCU films. It was nominated for an Oscar for a reason. Then we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I've had a love-hate relationship with this one over the years. There was a point in time where I was like, oh, it's terrible, now I've really come and turned around on it, and I'd say it's bordering top 10, if not top 10 for me. Just really sweet, and Yondu's death at the end. Oh, brutal stuff. Then we got Spider-Man Homecoming, which was the first solo Spider-Man film in the MCU. Let this sink in for you. Vulture is a top-tier Spider-Man villain that includes the Raimi trilogy. He is elite, played by Michael Keaton. The moment in the car, and when he walks up to the front door of Liz's house, you must be Peter. Chills. Thor Ragnarok on Steelbook got this way back in the day when it came out. Thor Ragnarok is overrated. Now, don't get offended when I say that. I think the movie's fun, but the comedy hasn't aged well, and it just doesn't hold up on rewatch for me as much as I would like to. Then we got Black Panther. I don't go back to this movie that much. I haven't seen it since probably 2018, if I'm being completely honest here. And that's on me. I got to give it another go one day. It's just been so long. Now, getting into some goodies. We got Avengers Infinity War. This is the best MCU movie, my favorite, the most impactful, the most memorable. I remember when the trailer dropped on my birthday in 2017. I watched this trailer, on a loop in class, in school. I was like, nope, gotta watch the trailer, screw school. So, yeah, Avengers Infinity War, come on. Thanos wins, it's one of a kind. Then we got Ant-Man and the Wasp. Not much to say about that one. It's kind of a forgotten film, but the post-credit scene's memorable. Captain Marvel. $1 Billion Club movie right here, ladies and gentlemen. It's bottom tier MCU for me, but it's not terrible. It's just kind of a bland watch. Then we got the Avengers Endgame Steelbook. I own this film on standard as well. This is the 4K Steelbook. On the front, we've got the heroes who were not snapped. On the back, we've got those who were snapped. Brilliant idea, gorgeous steelbook. This is the end of an era of the MCU, and forever I will cherish the Infinity War Endgame era. And then rounding out the Infinity Saga, technically, we got Spider-Man Far From Home. Ugly poster, ugly slipcover, but Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio has a lot of fun here. The relationship between MJ and Peter's a standout, and the character of Brad is such a loser. Can we all agree on that? Got a couple more here. I'm trying to find where they are. There they are. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to do this because the stack's getting big over there. I got Black Widow. I saw this movie, I think, twice in theaters, and then I watched it on Disney+. I really dug it when it came out. It was a comfort movie in the year 2021, and I stand by the fact that Yelena and Red Guardian are two of the best additions to the MCU in the new era. Excited for more of them in a couple months in Thunderbolts. Then we got Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Why haven't we seen this character since 2021? No reason not to see him return. Are they just writing them away? What are we doing? Eternals on Steelbook. We're never going to see these characters again. And that's like the one problem I have with the MCU is in the first 3 phases, they were so good at continuity and everyone coming back, every post-credit scene having payoff. These characters have a whole movie, and they introduce like these universe-changing concepts in the movie, and they're just never going to come back or see the light of day or be referenced. And that, kind of, the way I'm going to describe it is there's now an itch that will never be scratched in my brain. It's really unfortunate. Then we got Spider-Man No Way Home on Steelbook, a gorgeous, gorgeous Steelbook. You got Doc Ock, Goblin, Electro. This is a freaking work of art. I would frame this on the wall if I could. I've seen this movie, I think, almost 10 times in my life. I saw it, 5 times in theaters. Try and watch it every year. It is special. It is a special, special film. I will cherish this one to the end of time. And now I don't actually own the rest of the MCU. I don't own, there's a gap, is what I'm getting at. I don't own Guardians 3, Quantumania, Wakanda Forever, Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder, And so I don't own those movies. These next two were actually sent to me by the studio. The first one's The Marvels on Steelbook. What a gorgeous Steelbook. Like, thoughts on the movie aside for those watching, you can't deny this is really a cool design for a Steelbook. I like this movie more than the average person, I'd say. I haven't gone back to it since theaters. It bombed at the box office, obviously. But I had fun with it, and I thought Aman Vellani's Miss Marvel carried it. It's a bit all over the place in the first 20 or 30 minutes. It finds its footing eventually. There's some humor that works, but the movie is kind of messy, undeniably. So that was inevitable. The entire Blu-ray stack just fell over, but I had one movie left to talk about when it happened. What are the odds? That last movie is an MCU movie. It is the most recent. It is Deadpool and Wolverine. The studio sent me this, and I got the Wolverine Steelbook. There's a Deadpool Steelbook, but Wolverine's front and center here. This was my favorite movie of 2024. It's special to me, and you know, look at the back. You got the Wolverine logo. Inside, you've got the disc art and then a bunch of the Deadpool variants. Love this movie. I've seen it 4 times, I want to say now. One of them was on 4K disc. And it's so great at balancing these fan-pleasing moments where the crowd's going to get on their feet and cheer, you know, with surprise character appearances, with heartfelt moments and actual meaningful character development between Deadpool and Logan. Both of them go through a lot in this film. Jackman crushes it at coming out of retirement, and I just adore Deadpool and Wolverine. But that does it for the comic book movie genre. Round of applause, we made it the biggest genre I have by far. Now we're moving into the Walt Disney Animation Studios films combined with some live action remakes. So this starts with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and goes to modern day. I have Pixar next. That's a separate category for me, but first up, we've got Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the one that started it all. A movie that I feel like a lot of people, you know, respect, admire for being the first feature-length animated film, but go back and rewatch this one. It's very slow, to be honest. It's not a bad movie by any means, but it is slow, and I don't really know anyone who has this as like their favorite that they watch all the time, so respect it. It's a piece of history, but not one of my favorites by any means. Then we got Pinocchio. Jiminy Cricket is the scene stealer here. This movie will get very dark at times, surprisingly. Like Pleasure Island, there's some disturbing imagery there. But this movie gave us When You Wish Upon a Star. It's iconic for that reason. Next we have Peter Pan. Think of a wonderful thought, any happy little thought. This movie's Disney magic, arguably at its finest. What a delightful film Peter Pan is. Then we've got Cruella de Vil, 101 Dalmatians on Steelbook, as you can see right here. I have a soft spot for this one. I have a soft spot for a lot of movies I own, obviously. Pongo Old Boy and Purdy, they're one of my favorite couples in Disney, and it's just a special movie. I see myself and my girlfriend a lot in these two characters, and, you know, Cruella de Vil, iconic Disney animated villain, so love me some 101D, baby. Next, I got a live-action remake, I guess we can call it, Cruella. Emma Stone crushes it as Cruella de Vil. This comes in a really cool slipcover, and we got a red case. I love a good red case. I want to rewatch this one soon. Whenever I'm in a Disney mood next, I gotta throw Cruella on. Paul Walter Hauser's in this film. I mean, it's a really fun one. The costumes, so intricate and detailed. It was robbed of winning an Oscar for costumes, in my opinion, but Cruella de Vil. Come on now, I'm ready for Cruella 2 if they actually end up making that, which I really hope they do. Next, we got Mary Poppins. Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim chiree. Not a Walt Disney Animated Studios film, but I kind of just wanted to put it here anyway. This one is a classic. Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke. I mean, come on, what's not to love? So many memorable songs that hold up to this day. And then I have Mary Poppins Returns, which I bought as a product of me being buy happy back in the day, where I would just buy everything. And, you know, I saw this in theaters, liked it, but I don't really know if it holds up. Lin-Manuel Miranda's in here. He's got a cool song, Underneath the Lovely London Sky, but I haven't seen it since then, so yeah. Next, we have The Jungle Book, childhood favorite. My grandparents owned it on VHS, so I have vivid memories of watching it then. It's one that I admire more than most. It's a top-tier animated film for me, and I listened to the soundtrack a bunch between The Bare Necessities and Wanna Be Like You. That's childhood right there, baby. And I got the live-action remake, one of the best that Disney's put out, visually stunning film, and Jon Favreau actually directed that bad boy. Then I got The Little Mermaid, which is from 1989, I believe. It's, you know, right when the Renaissance era really picked up for Disney, and so, of course, it's one of their most iconic, beloved Disney films, and the ride, Ariel's Undersea Adventure, I believe it's called, it kind of hits. It's a nice way to get some AC at the park and just chill for a bit. Then we got Beauty and the Beast, nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars back when they only nominated 5 movies. That tells you all you need to know here. This is a 5 out of 5 to me, and it's a tale as old as time. This is like damn near as good as it gets in terms of just animated films and storytelling. It's such a beautiful, beautiful movie, and I think the live-action remake is one of the best live-action remakes they've done. Switched up some songs, gave us Evermore. Dan Stevens' Beast is you know, he's great. You got Luke Owens as Gaston. You got LeFou, played by Josh Gad. Like, I thought the casting across the board was spot on, and one of the best, if not the best, Disney live-action remakes to me. Then we got Aladdin. Come on. I mean, this is really when the Disney Renaissance era was on a roll, baby. Robin Williams' Genie is an all-timer that, you know, you can't replace, and so I've never watched the live-action remake. Then we got my favorite animated film of all time. I've owned many versions of this film over the years, including the special edition DVD from 2005 with Morning Report included. It's The Lion King, ladies and gentlemen. There's not much else to say here. It's got one of the best soundtracks of all time. It's an absolutely inspiring film. The childhood memories are there for me. I watched it ad nauseum as a kid, and of course, it contains just so much important, valuable life lessons with Rafiki and Simba, you know. Yes, the way I see it, the past can hurt, but you can either run from it or learn from it. Masterpiece, in my opinion. Now we're getting into some of the more modern flicks. I've got Tangled here, which is maybe my favorite of the new era. Wow, the soundtrack hits, and these two, what a sweet couple, you know, gotta love them. Then we got Frozen, just the first Frozen. I don't really care for the second, but this one surprisingly contains a plot twist that we might have your jaw on the floor. This is one of my favorite steelbooks. I don't showcase it a lot. Wreck-It Ralph. Look at that thing. It's like an actual arcade machine. Super cool. Very much love the attention to detail here. And a real fresh movie for Disney with another twist that got me good. Disney has been on a roll in that era of having villain twists that just work. Next, we got Moana. Despite the fact that Moana 2 was lifeless to me and just a real big drop-off in quality, this movie is still a gorgeous animated film with a Lin-Manuel Miranda soundtrack full of life. It's easy to sing along, and it's a feel-good movie. And rounding out this section, I've got Raya and the Last Dragon. I also bought this back in the day when I was kind of just buying everything. Saw this in theaters, liked it a lot. I've not thought about it since. I don't really remember the movie, truth be told. And this is rare because there's no disc here. Like, I don't know why that is. There's just an empty disc holder. I still got the movie on 4K and Blu-ray, but for some reason there's just a weird empty disc there. So this is like some misprint, I think. It's a cool thing that for collectors, but I don't remember much about this one. And that's all I have to say about that. So those were the Walt Disney Animation Studios films. Now we're heading into Pixar territory. I've got these organized by release date, just like I did with the other one, but if there's a sequel, I just went ahead and put it with the rest of the movie. So first up, we've got You've Got a Friend in Me, Toy Story, the one that started all for Pixar and still a top 5 Pixar movie for me. Look, it actually has a sticker, free movie ticket with purchase. You can get a free movie ticket for Toy Story 3. Found this bad boy on eBay. The same can be said for Toy Story 2. Very underrated Pixar film. A lot of people will sort of dismiss one of the first 3 Toy Story movies and put it lower, but to me, they're all top 10. And then you've got Toy Story 3, baby, which is my favorite Toy Story film, one of my favorite animated films, and tied for my favorite Pixar film. This trilogy right here, if these were the only movies that existed, it's a perfect trilogy. I would argue it's the best trilogy ever, which you could laugh at, you could scoff at, whatever. This movie reminds me, hey, change is a scary part of life, but it's necessary, and I feel like it is the perfect ending to Toy Story. And then we've got Toy Story 4, which I only own because, again, I bought it at a point in time where I was just buying a lot of things that I shouldn't be buying. Don't need to own this one. Forky's is a fine edition, but this is easily the weakest, and despite the fact that it took a risk, made another Toy Story movie after we had a perfect ending, it still gave us a very, very emotional final moment between Woody and Buzz, and now we're getting a 5th movie. So how many times are they going to fake end that series? Who's to say? Monsters, Inc.'s next on Steelbook. One of my favorite Steelbooks. Look at that. I mean, that thing is sick. You got the blue spine, but the purple cover and back. I adore this movie, and you know what? Some days it's my favorite Pixar movie. That's the thing when a studio is this great. They have multiple films that contend for that top spot. Randall, underrated Pixar villain, truly is. Next, we have Finding Nemo, which I've been listening to my Pixar score soundtrack a lot lately when I'm just doing stuff around and chilling, trying to relax. This score hits right in the feels. Thomas Newman composed the film, and the score for Finding Nemo resonates deeply with me. Finding Nemo is a movie that I watched way too much growing up. Like, I had a Nemo pinata, I'm pretty sure, at one of my birthday parties. I loved it. And then the older I got, I felt like I'd seen it so much that I was like, oh, I've seen that movie too much. Now I'm starting to wise up, and I'm like, I've always loved this movie. It is a 5 out of 5, and it's one of Pixar's best. It's a freaking emotional ride, and I feel like the older I get, I have like a cat now, and I feel like eventually, if I have kids one day, like this one could be my favorite Pixar movie because you experience it in different phases of life. And viewing this movie as a kid versus viewing it as like a parent one day, maybe, it's going to hit a lot harder, I feel. And then I got the sequel, Finding Dory, which I feel like is slept on. A lot of people dismiss this movie. Oh, it's not as good as Finding Nemo. Of course it's not. Nothing they ever made was gonna be. But there's still a sweet story told here, and Hank the Octopus is the MVP. Then we got The Incredibles. Wow, what a picture. The score here as well, one I listen to all the time. To be its own original superhero concept in animated form, it makes for one of the superhero films of the century. No exaggeration there. Syndrome is a phenomenal villain, and everything about The Incredibles just works. And then you got The Incredibles 2, or just Incredibles 2. Drop the, it's cleaner. Incredibles 2 should have come out like way before it did. This came out in 2018 for some reason, like 12 years after. 14 years, I want to say, after that first movie for some reason. So I hope we get a third sooner rather than later, because we don't need to wait another 14 years. But this expands the world. Elastigirl kind of takes the spotlight here. Sure, there's some predictability associated with villains, but Incredibles 2, very solid follow-up, and I feel like people dismiss it unfairly sometimes. Then we've got Ratatouille. Anyone can cook. My crowning jewel of Pixar, my favorite. And I believe this movie is a true inspiration to anyone out there who watches it. You need to pick me up. You need to believe. You need to reignite a passion in life or find that dream deep down inside you. Watch Ratatouille. It's going to do that for you. People laugh. People are like, no, it's good, but get out of here. It's not that high. BS. Watch Ratatouille and live. You'll feel reinvigorated as a human. This will make you want to live your life to the fullest. I believe in Remy. I love that movie. Next we got Up, gorgeous steelbook, maybe the best I've got, honestly. These Pixar steelbooks they were putting out were sick. I'm glad I picked these up when I did. Up will make you bawl uncontrollably in the first 10 minutes. Michael Giacchino's score is a character in and of itself in the film, but people are like, after the first 10 minutes, it falls off. It doesn't reach the heights again. That was the whole setup for the film. The rest, it becomes an adventure, and, you know, it's devastating at times, but by the end, it's uplifting and inspiring. So Pixar really cooked there, and they cooked with Inside Out as well. Man, I rewatched this before Inside Out 2. Movie hits from the score to the way that it handles emotion in such a complex way that's still accessible to a young audience. Pixar just knows what they're doing, and this is one of their best original concepts. And they followed it up with Inside Out 2, which I got sent by the studio. Really gorgeous steelbook here as well. One of my favorites of last year. I haven't seen it since theaters, but the way that it takes a step up and tackles more mature emotions with anxiety, embarrassment, etc. Like this steelbook's gorgeous, but the movie, it accurately portrays like anxiety attacks, and so I feel like they did a really good job taking another step, and if we get a third film with Riley even older, I'd be game for that. Next, I've got Coco, another Pixar film that's going to get the waterworks going, but maybe their most beautiful in terms of just animation. Look at that slipcover, for example. The animation on display in this film is out of this world, and remember me, though I have to say goodbye, remember me. I don't want to cry. And then we've got the last Pixar film that I own right now is Onward. I believe this is their most underrated film. It came out like a week or two before the pandemic hit and shut down theaters, so it got screwed by timing, unfortunately. But Onward, if you have a brother or a sibling, this movie will wreck you. And to me, I was crying in the theater. It's one of the few movies that's made me like tears fall on my face in the theater. It's special. I have an older brother, so I resonate with this one, and it's a special movie to me. So that does it for the Pixar movies that I own currently. And I promise you we're nearing the end. Next, I've got my Criterion collection. This might be the longest YouTube video I've ever posted. I'm kind of here for it. I'm enjoying this. This is something I do once a year, so I don't mind, you know, making it an extra long extravaganza. But the Criterion films I own, not a lot. Haven't seen them all, but I have seen a good chunk of them. I used to be big on buying them during the sale, but they're so expensive. Even on sale, they're really expensive. And movies in general are, so I've kind of cut back a bit. But kickstarting this thing, I've got Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, a movie I had not seen, but it was one that I said, I'm going to watch this movie at some point in my life. It's a must. So I think it was during 2020 or 2021, I went and bought it, and I watched it, and man, did I love it. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. It is the inspiration, the template for tons of other films and media and shows that would follow. For example, The Magnificent Seven, a Western I watched growing up, is Seven Samurai, just in a different font. There are episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars modeled after this. Every long-running TV show probably has an episode that's based on the Seven Samurai template, and it's just an epic film that everyone has to experience at least once. It's so gorgeously shot, and it's an influential movie, like one of the landmark movies that has such an influence on cinema. You just got to see it. Next, I've got, and by the way, these are organized by spine number. All the criterions have a number, and that was number 2. This is 13. This is The Silence of the Lambs. This film is haunting. It's won the Big Five, one of the few films to win the Big Five Oscars: director, picture, actor, screenplay, actress. And Silence of the Lambs, it's not for the faint of heart, really. It's a disturbing psychological thriller that will get under your skin. And my God, is Hannibal Lecter one of the most iconic, horror characters / thriller characters out there. Hidden Fortress is up next. This is spine number 116. This is another Akira Kurosawa film, and it's directly responsible for influencing Star Wars: A New Hope. In fact, George Lucas is on record saying that Hidden Fortress is one of the #1 inspirations. That's the main reason I picked this up. It was in 2020, I want to say. I watched it as a part of the 100 Movies I Missed project, and this movie is Star Wars in a way. And so to me, that's kind of beautiful. I got to see the inspiration. Like, this is a movie that inspired George Lucas to go out and make Star Wars. It's not a beat-for-beat remake. It's just heavily influenced, especially the characters of like R2 and 3PO early on in Star Wars when they're, they escape, and then they're kind of on Tatooine just roaming around. There's 2 characters in this film that are basically that. So there's a lot of influence from Hidden Fortress in A New Hope, and so if you're a fan of Star Wars, I recommend checking this out. Something you should watch at least once. This isn't a movie I'm going to go to much. It's just like a piece of history, and I was like, I got to own this, especially since I love Star Wars so much. I should check out the thing that inspired it. Next, we've got Notorious, another Alfred Hitchcock film. Seen it once, would love to rewatch it again. I believe this is Cary Grant, and I could be wrong here, but let's see. Got some Claude Rains in here, and then Ingrid Bergman. That's right, obviously. How could I be so foolish? Yeah, this movie is it's another real well-done mystery thriller by Hitchcock. He just excels at that. He's the master of suspense for a reason. And by the way, that was spine number 137. Now I've got spine number 336. And this is the ultimate hangout coming-of-age film, Dazed and Confused. I own the film on regular Blu-ray, but this is just so much cooler, let's be honest. This is the ultimate hangout movie. It will make you long for those really long summer days in high school when you're hanging out with your friends and, just doing dumb stuff. Like, this is that kind of movie where you just turn it on. It's like an hour and a half of just, kids celebrating the end of the school year, celebrating the start of summer, doing dumb things around the town and hanging out. And you got McConaughey with All Right. How could you not love it? Next, I've got spine number 476, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, David Fincher film. I gave this a 5 out of 5 when I first watched it, and it's comparable to Forrest Gump in a sense that it chronicles this one man's life and the crazy adventures and antics he gets involved with. There's a romance at the core that, the film has so much heart, and it's just one of those, like, inspiring films to me. Now, it does bother me that this doesn't have a clear Criterion case. For some reason, it's got the blue one. But still, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, you gotta watch. And I've seen all of Fincher's films. It's a top 3 for me, I want to say. Next, I've got spine number 591, 12 Angry Men. This was the first Criterion I got, I think. Might have been another one, but this is one of the first ones I got, and I think I first watched this like the day of like my prom, I think, in like 2017 or something like that. But so glad I own this. I want to rewatch this soon. It's a must-watch film. It's another one of those just American movies that just impacted cinema so much, so had to own it, and I'm so glad I do. Very intense, one-location movie, and super well done. Next, I have spine number 638, Following. This is a Christopher Nolan film, his first movie, and there are so many ideas in this film that we would see come to fruition with a bigger budget in later movies, like Memento, for example, even The Prestige. Like, Nolan, the mastermind he is, we see that on display so early on. And even though this is his first movie and it's super low budget and black and white, like, it's super well done, and God, he just knows how to play with timelines in his movies so well. Next, we got The Man Who Knew Too Much. This is the 1934 edition of the film. When I bought it, I thought I was getting the Jimmy Stewart version of the film that is also directed by Hitchcock. He just made the same movie again years later. However, this is not, and I kind of regret buying this because I was like, damn, why did I not know? It's not bad. 75 minutes long. I've seen it one time. I wouldn't watch it again probably, but, it's there. It's a Hitchcock movie. I might as well keep it. And then I've got On the Waterfront, Marlon Brando. This is spine number 647, and by the way, The Man Who Knew Too Much was 643. On the Waterfront, Marlon Brando may give his best performance here. Yes, he's Don Vito Corleone in The Godfather, but this might actually be his best work. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. Yeah, it's a must-watch. Not much else to say there. One of the first Criterions I own. Next, we've got Punch Drunk Love, Spy Number 843. This is referenced earlier in the video. This is a earlier Paul Thomas Anderson film. Adam Sandler gives a great dramatic performance here. And this movie's not for everybody. It's 95 minutes, but you know who steals the show? Philip Seymour Hoffman. Rest in peace to a legend. His rage on the phone call, like, that's such a funny scene. Next, we have a movie I haven't seen. It's Spy Number 838, Pan's Labyrinth, Guillermo del Toro. I bought this during the Criterion sale. It's still in the wrapper. I'm saving it for one day. I'll watch it. I then have Spy Number 948, The Princess Bride. This is a classic that my girlfriend's mom insisted that I watched years ago, so I finally watched it, and I have watched the film since then. It's a classic. It's not like one of my all-time faves or anything, but it is a classic. Next, I have Spy Number 959, In the Heat of the Night, another Best Picture winner. Sidney Poitier, phenomenal here, and if you like, those procedural sort of crime dramas with detectives, this is probably your cup of tea, but it also deals with race relations in the South during a pretty heated time. We have the other Criterion I haven't seen, Spy Number 1011. This is Sidney Lumet's Failsafe. I don't know why I haven't watched this yet, because Sidney Lumet also directed Dog Day Afternoon and 12 Angry Men, and so I'm kind of like, I'd probably love this movie. I just got to check it out. So I will save that for, a rainy day, but I know this will be my thing. I just got to get around to it. Next, we have the only Wes Anderson film that I own, Spy Number 1025, The Grand Budapest Hotel. Ray Fiennes carries this movie. I'm not a huge Wes Anderson guy, but this is, like, to me, the most accessible of his films to the general audiences. Everything is, like, down to a T and perfect symmetry. This movie, it's a bit quirky. That's kind of a word I would use to define Wes Anderson, but I still own the movie because, I don't know, why not? Next, we have The Great Escape. This is Spy Number 1027. This is my favorite Steve McQueen movie, a movie I watched with my dad all the time growing up. It's an epic film, a war film, a prison break film, and I can't recommend this enough. If you like The Shawshank Redemption, I feel like you'll like this. It's set during World War II, and you get to see the elaborate planning of the prisoners of war digging tunnels to escape. If you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's actually referenced, and I was like going crazy in the theater. I was like, no way. Great Escape, you gotta watch if you haven't seen it. Next, we have Spy Number 1058, The Irishman, Scorsese flick. It's on Netflix, but I bought the Criterion when it came out. With a knife you run, with a gun you charge. Quoted this movie a bunch with my friends when it came out, and I don't watch it much because it's 209 minutes long, one of the longest movies I've ever seen. But I gotta own it. It's a Scorsese mob flick. And then the last one I own is Spy Number 1075, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, comparable to Dazed and Confused, comparable to Superbad. It's a high school coming-of-age flick, raunchy for the time. And Sean Penn as Spicoli, hilarious. You also got a young Judge Reinhold here who is Neil from The Santa Claus. So yeah, this movie is hilarious. It's only like 90 minutes long. Definitely worth watching. And it's a classic from 1982. So that does it for my Criterions. We're really close to the end now. And rounding out the Blu-ray collection for 2025, I've got TV shows. A bunch of these I was actually sent by the studio, and others I bought on my own. But I have the MCU TV shows that I own, and I will say that I've only bought one of these. The rest were sent to me. However, I kept them because they're cool steelbooks, even if I don't like the shows, but for the most part, I enjoyed them. First, we got WandaVision, the complete series. I was sent this, and this steelbook is freaking gorgeous. Like, I have my thoughts on WandaVision and the way that it, ended. The week-to-week hype was there, but the product itself, in retrospect, but still, gorgeous steelbook. And Wanda, a character we may or may not see again. Next, we got The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the complete first season. Really underrated show, in my opinion. I'm excited for the future of both characters. Sam Wilson as Captain America, obviously, but a gorgeous steelbook here, and grounded, street-level MCU, overhated at the time. The biggest complaint were the Flag Smasher villains, but John Walker kind of served as the real antagonist to me, and seeing Bucky and Sam have to, overcome some past trauma and demons, specifically the character of Bucky, really well handled to me. Next, we got Loki Season 1, gorgeous steelbook. I bought this one at Best Buy. It was one of the final Blu-rays I bought on a Blu-ray hunt. And Loki Season 1, really well done. But you know what else is done? Well, Loki Season 2. This is the best MCU Disney Plus show right now to me, and I own both seasons. The Season 2 steelbook is so beautiful. Look at that thing. Oh my gosh, I love the artwork on these. They're all like things I would want to hang on the wall. And Loki is the best MCU Disney Plus show to me. It took a character I didn't really care for, made him super easy to root for, but tragic in a way. It was super well handled. And the final lines from Mobius, where he's like, I think I'll just sit here a while, let time pass. Whew. Then we got Hawkeye. Really delightful MCU Disney Plus show that's overhated in my opinion, and I think we're getting season 2. It's a Christmas show, and you know, Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop slays, dare I say. And the final of the MCU Disney Plus shows I own was sent to me. Moon Knight season 1. I'm infamously not really a fan of Moon Knight, but it's a really cool steelbook, and I think they're doing a season 2, maybe not. I said when that show came out we might not see this character again, and looks like we are getting closer and closer to that being a reality. Now we're getting into the Star Wars Disney Plus shows that I own. This was sent to me. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Season 1. Obi-Wan was really disappointing. It came out the same year as Stranger Things, the same day as Stranger Things Season 4, Volume 1, and so I was like, oh, I gotta watch Obi-Wan first. In retrospect, you were a fool, Chris. You were a fool. Obviously, they had Ewan McGregor coming back in the role. That's childhood. They had Hayden coming back as Anakin and Vader. Come on. Like, I was gonna eat it up. But young Leia, you know, what was her name? The Inquisitor. What was her name? Reva. There was just so many issues, and it should have just been Obi-Wan and Anakin. That's all I needed, but they made it way too bloated. Next, we have maybe the best Star Wars media post-prequel trilogy. Maybe. Andor Season 1. Season 2 drops in April. I will be rewatching this beforehand. Gorgeous steelbook for a real drama show. One Way Out. Chills every time. Next, we have The Mandalorian Season 3, which was sent to me. I don't own Seasons 1 and 2 on steelbook. I need to get those. But Season 3 is the weakest season by far. I am hopeful that The Mandalorian and Grogu can maybe pick up some momentum that was lost with this season. But, what a directionless season, unfortunately. And the last of the MCU Disney Plus show, or Star Wars Disney Plus shows that I own is Ahsoka Season 1. I was real into this show, and then it kind of just ended on a whimper for me. Kind of like felt pointless by the time the series ended, but we're getting a Season 2. I think they're filming now, and I saw that Rory McCann, who plays the Hound in Game of Thrones, you know, he's going to be playing Balin in the next season. The actor's name's escaping me, but rest in peace to who did play him. Ray Stevenson, I want to say, actually, rest in peace. But Thrawn in live action was cool. This show just, we do need a Season 2. And then the final things I own are the Breaking Bad complete series on Blu-ray. As you can see right here, one of the best shows ever made. And accompanying that, I've got the El Camino steelbook. This is the front, this is the back. This is the Breaking Bad sequel movie with Jesse. And I need to own Better Call Saul, and then I'll own the whole universe from Breaking Bad on Blu-ray. But ladies and gentlemen, that does it for my complete Blu-ray collection 2025. I have no clue what the final runtime of this video is, but you probably could have watched The Godfather or The Dark Knight Rises in the same amount of time. So if you made it to this point in the video and you watched the whole way through, I can't thank you enough. Comment down below, #complete, or just complete, whatever you prefer. But thank you, for real, if you watch this whole video. It was like movie length. I'm going to take a sip of my Dr. Pepper Zero as I babble on here. Absolutely delicious. Got me through this thing. But I had to film this in 2 parts. My power went out, and I actually lost the footage, and then my girlfriend Cam was the MVP and like rediscovered it. I think she had some software that like saved the footage. It was a disaster, so glad everything worked out in the end. But that does it for my 2025 Blu-ray collection. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. Got lots of content planned for this year with Stranger Things, with Cobra Kai, with Marvel, you name it. I'm covering everything, so appreciate you guys as always, but I'll probably do the Blu-ray collection like this moving forward. It felt more personable, more fun. It's going to be longer, but I feel like it's worth it since this is a once-a-year type of video. I am exhausted now. I'm going to go edit this bad boy. Who knows how long that's going to take. But all love to everyone watching. Thank you so much for your support here. Hoping for a great year on the channel. Hopefully you'll follow along with me and follow the journey. But that does it. Appreciate you guys again. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.